Hi guys, I'm just doing some last minute checks, but it's so good to see people already here. Give me maybe we'll start in like 3 more minutes, 10:05. Thank you so much. It'll be just a little bit more waiting. Hang on. Okay, it's 10:05. I've been trying to troubleshoot. For some reason, I'm getting dropped frames. I don't know why, really. I'm not the only one using the net right now, but hello, good evening, everyone. This is Kh'nvinien, the creatures that neither here nor there. So, this is the Iceberg. We're gonna discuss it. Oh, wait, hang on. There we go. Everything's okay? Okay. Hopefully this doesn't lag so much, but anyway, like I said, good evening everyone. Thank you for dropping by. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the BGM selection. Hello Shun. Hello Aki. Hello Iwi. Yeah, I've been trying to keep this a secret the entire time. People in my circle have seen this put out, but yeah, I I drew a PNG for discussions just for the stream. Anyway, so this is the Iceberg. Once again, I'm thanking everyone for their submissions. Everyone who gave me their usernames in the submissions are featured here. Once again, Hime, thank you so much for your help, especially with contacting the person that had those very special images. So, hi Connie. Oh my God, you're here. Thank you so much. So, since this is gonna be archived, I'm just gonna be giving a quick introduction to Touken Ranbu. To anyone who is not familiar with the series, Touken Ranbu is a character simulation game developed by Nitro Plus and published by DMM. It came out in 2015 and today is its 8th anniversary. So despite people saying that, oh, the game's still around, yes, we are very alive and well here. And I decided to make this Iceberg because there's so much to talk about this game. A lot of the mutuals I have, which I'm very grateful for, by the way, a lot of them weren't here like that early on. Like I think a lot of them, like I mean, like some of them, like Hime, have been here since 2015 or so, but a lot of them have only been here like maybe for half the generation. So I wanted to compile what everyone's experiences are and show them here for everyone to discuss. That's enough of a really long intro now. Let's just get started. Okay. So for the first level, we have 4 entries. First one is Hanamaru and Katsugeki. There. So pretty much just Touken Ranbu's 2 anime adaptations done by different studios and with different themes. So I think this is obviously at the top of the iceberg because people who didn't even like really get into the game know about this one. Like even like just passing by one episode, even if like people just calling it Fujo bait in those terrible reviews. You've joined in on Churabu for about 2 years, so I hope this can clear so much of the doubts and inform our hyperfixated brain. I hope so, though I feel like this might also just give you more info to like get hyperfixated over, because I've been here for 8 years and a lot of these things I've been thinking of a lot. And as expected, I was not completely ready and forgot to bring out my notes. Give me a sec. Oh god, so Hanamaru and Katsugeki, these two actually were announced at really about the same time frames. And as we all know, Hanamaru is considered a more lighthearted one that features more characters and focuses more on Citadel life. But after a while, they did end up discussing... Hang on, They did end up like tackling more of the more serious topics and the like. And Katsugeki, as we all know, it's by Ufotable. I actually don't know how to pronounce that in person without reading it. So okay, here's my notes. Hanamaru was first aired in October 2016, produced by Doga Kobo. Oh yeah, Touken Ranbu. English only, please, cause like we're gonna keep this archive. But I mean, like, yeah, I will be mostly speaking in English here. So first season came out in October 2016. It did well enough to get more installments, such as the season 2 in January 2018, and the latest installment was the movie trilogy from last year, which was released in May, July, and September. Katsugeki, on the other hand, was released in July 2017, and after the end of the season, they announced a movie project that, as we all know, has been in limbo ever since. Honestly, like, I could go on a rant about this, but I'm not going to. I'm just gonna say, pretty disappointed, and frankly, I'm not really expecting much from that anymore. So, okay, let's move next. Okay, the next one is Touken Ranbu's Card Fight Vanguard deck. Here, by the way, the link to this iceberg is in the description below. It's unlisted right now. I'll tag it later after the stream, mostly because I still don't know what to tag it with, but you could actually open it in the browser and follow along, and like these are all, save for maybe 5 entries, all of them have links to like references, whether it's articles, pictures, and have like annotations, so it's pretty easy to get into. So Touken Ranbu Card Fight deck. Next. Oops. Okay, so this is the first what do you call this? First promotional image for the first deck, which was released in 2015. So it got this very, very early. Katsugeki, who we don't know that. Yup. I heard it's just like some sort of cryptid, like the Bigfoot. Anyway. So the card deck was given a follow-up in 2017. And when... Actually, I'm very confused about what they did with Vanguard. But from what I understand, the Vanguard series was kind of rebooted in a way into the Overdress series, and Touken Ranbu was still included in that in 2021 and was constantly receiving updates from last year as well. I'm unclear if they've said anything about adding more characters, because of course as the game progressed there were more characters that ended up being released after the booster pack, so they're not in the decks. So yeah, it's funny about this card deck is that it from what I heard from, like, I don't play the game because it's like the rules are a bit overwhelming and I don't have anyone to practice with. But from what I heard, the deck is a bit confusing, or like some of the mechanics for it are questionable. So it was quite a big news when, unfortunately, I couldn't find an article for this. So it's like take it with a grain of salt. At some point, someone won a tournament with this deck, so it was kind of a shock that people actually wrote an article about it. I couldn't find it because it was just shared by a Vanguard enthusiast in the local group. But I'll follow you guys up if I find anything about that. Next, we're into the big gun, the big recent shiny update, Muso. Oh wait, here's some of the sample cards from the overdress set. So there's just a normal card of like featuring Samidare, and one of the fancier rare cards that feature, I think this was like the 6th or 7th anniversary illustrations of the swords. This is like GG's new rare card. Okay, Muso. In August 2021, a warrior-style game for the franchise was announced. It was released on February 2022 for PC and the Nintendo Switch, published by Omega Force, Ruby Party, and Koei Tecmo Games. So this was kind of a surprise because people have been thinking about how good of an idea this would be for the longest time. Like, I think even back in 2015, I've heard people say, oh, this would be such a good concept for a Warriors game. And they're right, because, you know, most of these swords participate in the Sengoku era, and even then, like, they're sword warriors. It would seem perfect for that, especially since they've told us that we are vastly outnumbered by the enemies. So that works with the hack and slash concept. It's only in 2022 that this became a reality. I'm gonna have to be honest. I actually haven't finished the game. In my defense, this was because the controller I had seemed to have problems with controlling it, so it wasn't a very enjoyable experience for me to play. But I might stream that sometime soon because I got a better controller now, which hopefully doesn't give me the same issues. And from a technical standpoint, Muso leaves a lot to be desired for a Warriors game because it's a bit too easy, even like if you put it on hard. Because at least this is what I've heard, and as I play the demo, I kind of have to agree that it doesn't pose a lot of difficulty, so people who are coming in from the Warriors franchise would be vastly disappointed. But that's a discussion for another time. And the final entry for this top layer is the stage and musical productions. So these are the images for the first productions for the stage play and musical productions. For people who are new to this concept, this tends to be a misconception that the musical and stage productions are the same thing. They're not. It features entirely different casts and writers for each one, and as the name implies, the musical's storytelling element relies mainly on musical numbers like singing, dancing, and routines and the like. The stage play does have some of this, but it's from what I've watched of some of the productions, it's usually just at the very end, like an ending song of sorts. So the musical's first performance was held on October 30, 2015, while the first stage performance was held in May 3, 2016. They were planning a crossover for this at some point, but unfortunately it got hit with the whole pandemic issues, which is tragic, honestly, because it ended up just being a really big Zoom call, which, you know, wasn't quite the big smashing Marvel crossover any of us expected, but what can you do? At least they tried to make the most of it. I personally hope that they try again someday, but you know, with how many actors they had to get for this, it's probably very, very difficult to check in with the schedules for each one. So that's our first layer. We'll go to the second one, which also has 4 entries. The first one is Kogitsu Namaru's half-cost repairs. This is on the second layer because, first of all, it's not explicitly told, and second, you would have to be actually playing the game. Okay. I have seen so much comments from Musa fans on why there is no female characters, and some of us has to explain what Touken Ranbu is. Right. Like, I get that Muso does Muso does have girls, and it's like, even if they tried to do that with Touken Ranbu Muso, who are they gonna add? Nikari's ghost? But yeah, I wish that in terms of gameplay, it was actually on the same level so that people had less comments apart from like, where girl? Anyway, Kogitsunamaru's half cost repairs. This mostly refers to the fact that he was Smith, or rather, it's thought that he was Smith with the assistance of the deity Inari, which means, well, he's special in construction, so he uses up less materials compared to any other Tachi in the game. This isn't in the game guide either, so like this is just kind of like a thing you find out on your own if you were actually observant. This also applies to him in his Kiwame form, which is very convenient because, as we all know, when boys go to Kiwame and they get injured, the expenses go up way high. So it's quite helpful, especially if you don't happen to have Hakusan in your citadel. The next one is collaborations with museum and shrine exhibits. Well, I put this on the second layer because it's sort of a thing that you don't find out unless you're actually invested enough to go looking, because it's like, a live event and such. Love that little Easter egg, right? It's, it didn't have to happen, but it's quite nice that it's there. It's like, oh, very, very nice subtle taste. So with the museum and shrine exhibits, these will usually feature, at the very least, standees of the characters featured in the exhibit, placed either at the entrance or by the exhibit itself. And if it's a bit more, I guess I would say, a more high production, they would have exclusive merchandise as well. Like, these merchandise are usually feature illustrations that were drawn specifically for that event, and you can only get at that event. Usually they don't even have mail order. So it really encourages tourism towards the shrines and the museums. You'll see this come up again a little lower in the Iceberg. Where did I put it? I think it's in the third one. Or in the fourth one, maybe. But yeah. Eiga Touken Ranbu. Okay. I forgot to mention, these are... it's a comparison. Like, these were the first production visuals, and then the improvement onto the latest ones. So there's Go On stage and the Takarazuka stage production. I'm not sure if the stage production is already performing, but I know Go On stage already is. It's had a few runs now. Manba's exhibit had a separate room for standee and merch booth. Oh, that's awesome. And it makes sense too, so at least that the people that are just there to casually view swords, I mean, like, not casually, but it's like they don't really care about the franchise, they still get to enjoy it without the droves of fangirls lining up to get merch. And okay, next. Here, Eiga. I put this a little lower down because unlike the animes, this did not get an English dub nor official subtitles, if I remember correctly. So it features reoccurring actors from the stage plays, but with some of them not reprising the roles, such as the one for Nihongo. And it also follows a storyline that's been tackled in the stage play as well, the events of Honoji. I'm not that intimately familiar with the stage play to know if it was the exact same timeline, but yeah, they pretty much adapted most of it into a movie, then added their own storytelling for it, such as featuring Asaniwa, who is very prominent in the plotline towards the end. I'm not gonna spoil it, just in case like people actually want to see it. And in my opinion, as much as I wish that they discuss something apart from Honoji, it's probably a good idea too, since it's one of the more commonly known events in Japanese history for people who are just casually passing by, and it's probably a bit easier to understand as well. Although, like, they don't give you a whole lot of context in the movie to begin with, but it's a great showcase of how to interpret the game, the franchise, into something with moving visuals and action scenes. The movie is getting a sequel as well, featuring more characters, and a plotline that may or may not involve Dojigiri. At least we know we're going way back in time, so that's very interesting. Let's put this away. And our final entry for the second layer is 130 Hell. This is so appropriate since we have a smithing campaign right now. So, 130 Hell, needless to say, for those who aren't playing the game, in order to quote-unquote roll for characters, you have to smith them, and you're able to kind of guess what kind of sword you're getting depending on the timer. 130 Hell is it basically, just as you could guess, 130 is one of the most common timers you can get, especially on the higher value smithing resources. Like, you can set how much resources you get, and that could help determine what kinds of swords you get. So of course, if you just do the basic 50 all, you're probably just gonna get a Tanto and nothing else there. 400, I think 400 all still gets you Wakizashi. I'm very out of date with how the smithing rates work these days. Okay. Hope that the new movie is on cinemas in my country, and so I can grab Mochi Gigi and bring him with me. Yeah, like, that's another thing. The reason it's on the second layer is because while it did have a cinematic release overseas, it wasn't a huge thing. Like, it was in very select cinemas and very short run times. Sometimes, even in my country, it was sharing a cinema with a different movie, so it was kind of only showing for half the time per day, if it was even like kept there for more than a single day, since barely anyone went to see it. So anyway, 130 Hell, it just gets you rarity 2 Uchigatana, which are average swords. They're not terrible, but then again, in Touken Ranbu, there's no such thing as a bad sword, only a bad Seniwa. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it's a source of frustration for Seniwa because usually when there's a smithing campaign, no new sword's going to be 130. I think it's only happened a few times. Actually, I don't remember if Kiko was ever a 130 on release, or if he was an event. It's been so long. But yeah, usually the minimum timer you would want is a 3R. But there's been cases where there's been 4 Rs, 320, 5 Rs. Oh dear, I hope that motorcycle didn't come through. Anyway, point of it is 130, terrible timer, you'll get sick of it. And that's it for layer 2. When they updated the smithing pool, everyone scrambled to get the new 130s, Kiko included. Yeah, I honestly kind of slacked on that. I still don't have a very high Ranbu level Kiko, or Nagasone for that matter, but that's not what we're here for. So that's the second layer. We'll move on to a bit more info in the third layer. So these ones are more, you have to be a bit more in the fandom to know these ones, because actually some of these don't even have links because they're just kind of fandom concepts, which I couldn't necessarily link to a single image or single article about it, so I'll just try my best to explain these as I go. There's also the recipe that guarantees R2 Uchi, so if it spawns... Oh, that's true, yeah. So Hasebe is like a weird case because he shares a timer with Odachi. So he can be a bit of a spoop as well. Okay, let's just scroll this down a little bit. And let me take a little bit of water because I've been doing so much talking so far. And we're barely... This is barely halfway, or maybe even 1/3, because layers 4 and 5 are quite dense. I think each of them have 14 entries, so we're gonna be here for a while. Hang on. Quick water break. You guys take some water too if you haven't had any in a good while. Stretch, unshrimp yourselves. Water's good. Okay, first entry, Iced Royal Milk Tea. I put this here because, as I said, if anyone joined a little bit later than maybe 2016, 2017, this kind of fandom idea kind of started dying out because they've been adding more R4s. But back then, in the earlier days, the only rarity 4 Tachi or special Tachi in the game, there was only Kosetsu for ice, royal is Ichigo, and milk is Tsurumaru, and tea, of course, is Uguisumaru. So together, they're referred to as Ice Royal Milk Tea. I think this may have a Pixiv tag, but I didn't really check. That's pretty much it. Then Yamabushi's Kiwame revision. Let's just get our files. There we go. So the thing with Yamabushi's Kiwame is that this region was not explicitly stated by staff itself, but players noticed that it looked quite similar to this illustration as I show here, Mizuko Furuta's Fudomyo, and the one next to it is the original Kiwame design. It bears a lot of similarities, which would not be a problem if the illustration on the right wasn't still under copyright. So, you know, like, just to avoid any issues, because from the colors of the drapery, the patterns, the leaf ornaments on his hair, they were a bit too close for comfort. So the devs decided to take it down, and they took a bit of time to revise and come up with a new design, which means in the time that it was removed, but since they couldn't turn back the implementation of the upgrades to the character because of course people had already sent him out, and that's irreversible once you do so, they just changed the assets to be the same as his original form, except with the Kiwame badge, just so you can tell the difference in case you have multiples of him. This was a source of debate, and understandably so, because it felt careless. And well, I'm not calling them careless, it just feels that way. Like, that's what I thought as well when I first saw this. But from what they said was that at the time of review back then, because for those that may not know, a lot of the assets here, despite their release schedule, they were actually made months, even years before we even see them in game. So at the time, it was fine, and well, I guess they didn't do enough of a thorough check. But I'm not here to criticize them, I'm just here to share you what happened. Yeah, like, people kind of commented, oh, there was a bit of like criticism towards the devs for this, but in the end, people also just had fun with the way they made a placeholder with him just a badge. This got a lot of fan art of Yamabushi, of him just kind of wearing it as a badge or a pin on his head. It's quite endearing. Next is Mugen Ranbu Sho. This is on the third layer because, like I said, this one was retired. How long was it, Hime? It's been 4 years since, like this one was in use for 4 years, right? And then you do not hear Mugen Ranbu Sho in the game at all these days. The exception is for that one cutscene in the Great Invasion. They used a short snippet of it there, as well as for the credits to wrap up the first arc. But Mugen Ranbu Sho is the first theme song made for the game, sung by Itagaki Sotaro, sorry. And from what I remember, this was first shown off or performed in a Tokyo game show, which was pretty cool. Like, Touken Ranbu used to attend it quite a lot and make their announcements there. Some swords were also announced at that same event. Next is various official comic anthologies and spin-offs. It's over here. Touken Ranbu continuously receives comic anthologies featuring one-shot stories from various artists, ranging from lighthearted scenes around the Citadel or AUs such as the High School AU, which is popular enough to be cosplayed by fans. So, like I mentioned, if you've been looking around Twitter, sometimes you'll see versions of the swords that are dressed in Gakuran, which is actually referencing a very early anthology called Touken Ranbu Gakuen. Here's the cover for it. It was released in 2015. I think it was in August, and this used to be actually retired it in 2020. We'll never forget her. Yeah, I miss Mugen Ranbu Sho every day. Sometimes I still play it. It's actually on YouTube Music, by the way, and Spotify, so if you want to listen to it, she's still there. Anyway, this is the cover for Touken Ranbu Gakuen, which used to be actually available to read online. Of course, it's not translated, but it was quite popular, and it still gets a lot of cosplay up to date, cosplay and fan art. And there's more versions of it. Like there's even anthologies made by the artist who does work for A3, and like it's, if you're able to get your hands on anthologies, I highly recommend it because they have such amusing and interesting takes on a lot of the characters. It's a great insight. Like it's also a way to like understand the certain fandom perceptions, such as which characters are good in the kitchen, because I think there's at least a good handful of stories that feature swords in the kitchen or just any sort of like cooking related incident. Remember that time Touken Ranbu show played in the Great Invasion? I know, right? It's so good. Honestly, when they brought it back, I kind of teared up. I was like, oh my god, this is perfect. Thank you for not forgetting her. And so the Iceberg actually links to one of the more later one of the more current installments of an anthology, which I think I linked was Touken Camp, which is basically swords on a camping trip. I'm quite interested in it. I kind of want to read it, so I'll have to try and get my hands on it somehow. Okay. Next is here's a good one. The random snippets I find always make me so happy, right? Like they're just so good and so funny. Like the best thing about Touken Ranbu, for those who are watching this and are unfamiliar with it, it's basically a sandbox, so you can do pretty much whatever you want with the interpretation of these characters, because it's gonna be your citadel and anything could happen in that. Like any characters can interact with each other. It's a huge place, and you can't be told that it's wrong because it's your citadel. Things could vary from one person's citadel to another. Okay, anyway, the next one is life-sized Mikazuki Monechika. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. The 1:1 scale Mikazuki Good Smile figurine, technically a statue at this point, that was based on a lottery system in 2018. Only 10 were made, but there is very little information on the winners or statues itself. I have pictures. Let's put up a picture. There we go. Wait, yep, there we go. So this is his voice actor looking at the prototype, and the first thing he does is immediately kneel down and take a peek under his hakama. I'm not gonna explain yet why, but this is very significant. Put a pin on this later. We're coming back to this. So there, the basically the mascot of the game. You would like, we have Konosuke, but whenever people see Mikazuki, people know Touken Ranbu. Tori-san is everyone. When they see Gigi, they think Touken Ranbu, so it only made sense that if anyone was gonna get a life-sized statue, it was gonna be him. 10 were made, and no one's ever actually posted pictures of... here's a size comparison. This was sent by Lee, by the way. Thank you so much for your suggestion, because I actually almost forgot about this one. Yes, that's Tori-san, Shun. I love how he's kind of like being modest about it, but he's also really trying to get a panty shop up in there. So, anyway, this is the statue colored, and the prices were given out, but of course, for obvious reasons, being that people might try and break into their house and do something with the statue, we don't know the identities of the people who won the lottery, and no one's actually posted even anonymously pictures of these being received. But somewhere out there, there's 10 life-sized Mikazuki Monechikas just standing there in someone's living room, probably. Admittedly, I wish I could have gotten a video of people seeing these on exhibit, because people got some like close-up videos of these, and the paint job is exquisite. I mean, like, you know, like, why do people buy life-size statues? You know, there's something up with some people. Like, I'm not, like, these are weebs we're talking about. So, just a little bit segue. As much as I have a bit of salt towards this thing getting made, and like some boys still lacking Nandroids, I have to admit, for like, this is a pretty good full-sized scale figure, because I've seen some for other franchises and they tend to have this uncanny valley look to them. They don't look good at certain angles, which is a lot. I'm not gonna name statues, like statue names of the bad ones, but off the top of my head, one of the good ones is, I think it's a character from Show by Rock, but since that's not related to the Iceberg, I didn't bring up a picture of that. But you know, it's just funny how Touken Ranbu really brings out the stops for merch production, because I didn't put it in this Iceberg. But did you guys know that GSC's boy focused division branch, Orange Rouge, it actually debuted with Mikazuki's scale fig, so that tells you a lot about the influence the game and its fans has had on thinking that boys are just as marketable as girl characters. Worship or become a clothes hanger. Yeah, you can just turn him into a coat rack. Okay, so that's it for life-size GG, 10 of them somewhere in Japan. I actually don't know if you could have won the lottery as an overseas lottery person, because the website for him, or web page rather, for the full scale is in English, so I'm not sure. Touken Ranbu set an extremely high standard. Yeah, same. Like, they're so surprisingly amazingly polished for a relatively lower price point than some other Nandos out there. If I remember correctly, Nitro Plus has one of the full-size figures in their office. Oh, that makes sense. Like, I mean, like, it's their boy, it's their mascot. They should get to keep one. That's interesting. I'll try and look into that. I hope they have pictures. So next is Higekiri's Daikon. This guy. This little guy. So, Shirano, Higekiri's character designer, included a small drawing of the sword holding a daikon that seemed to have limbs. This later on received for official merchandise. So this one is, from what I remember, this daikon plushie is a last get prize, meaning that when you draw the lottery, the only way you can get this one is if you were the last person to draw the ballot for that lottery set at that one specific branch. Hi Queenie, it's okay. You haven't missed too much yet. We're just actually getting to the spicy stuff. And thank you so much for dropping by. Hope you enjoy your stay and listening to me ramble. One of the local retailers tried opening pre-orders for him. Oh, that's cool. I didn't hear of that, but then again, this was at the time I wasn't that deep into Sword Hell that I was basically living it every day of my life, so I very likely would have missed it. Anyway, Higekiri Daikon plushie. Shirano drew Higekiri holding this weird guy in a doodle in Kenanzuroku 2, I think. Anyway, yeah. And people liked it so much they started drawing fan art of it, and I think he may have appeared actually in Hanamaru, I don't remember, but yeah. Little guy is alive and well loved by the Touken Ranbu community. What is in Reese's Puff Tag? Yeah. Like, this also plays into like the whole memes of weirdly shaped daikon and vegetables. La Creatura Daikon. Do you guys think it would come alive as a Sukumagami one day? Anyway, that's it for the little guy. Next is UTC background exclamation points. As you guys know, on UTC, short for Underground Treasure Chest event, is one of the events in the game where pretty much you have to run floors repeatedly under Osaka Castle, and its main highlight is this is done so you can get lots of koban for your citadel to be used in other things such as buying backgrounds, buying queso, or light outfits for your Todan, which is basically just in-game skins, and buying event passes for other event types. For context, this is important because you cannot buy koban with real money. They insist that you farm for this in-game. You cannot completely kakin your way through an event if you don't have any koban. Or well, you could, but it wouldn't be as efficient. because there are premium passes you can buy, but there's a purchase limit to them every day from what I understand, so there's that. Poor boy was censored. Under atmosphere. Wait, really? They had to censor him? But why though? What did he do to get censored? Like, Nihongo drinks on screen, but he's not censored? Free the boy. Release the uncensored version. So, UTC. One of the rewards for this is a special background, which basically commemorates every time you're able to clear the event. In the very first iteration, this was actually a surprise reward. So imagine this. First UTC, there were no Kiwami at the time. Some people probably already had max out swords, but at best, casual players probably only had maybe level 70, level 80. You had to get all the way to level 99. No, they just told you there was something fun at the end of it. Then all you got was... you went that deep just for this thing. A thing that says, "Congrats, you conquered Osaka Castle!" Exclamation point. You would theoretically have spent so much resources trying to get that deep. And this is all you got. It's barely any different from the default background. Just banner that says, "Congrats, you did a thing." So this becomes sort of a running joke, because the more that you went down, like the more you ran the events and got that far, they would give you another version of this, but the only difference is that they would add another exclamation to the end of it. And this is very special because it actually counts every... what do you call this? It counts every run you do as an individual player. It doesn't just count like, oh, this is like the 20-second version of UTC, so you get one with 20 exclamation points. Nope. It counts how many times you as a Saniwa had bothered to go down that deep. These days, it's actually a lot easier to get it too, because previously you had to get all the way to 99 to get the background, but after maybe a few years, I think 2017 or so, they lowered the requirement. You only had to go to floor 50 to get this, so going past that is just kind of a flex at that point, especially since the rewards aren't really that good. Like, XP is pretty good, but it's also quite high risk. And this is from the wiki. This is the most updated version they have of it. I think this is for if you've done it 20 times. Like, look at this. There's so much exclamation points in it. It's on both sides now. And the flower actually represents a certain number of exclamation points. So technically, if they counted it properly, there would be... I think the entire border of the screen would be covered by now. It's just a very silly thing. They did give out like that one special Osaka room background at one point, but this tradition still continues. And it's kind of like a silly flex too, because like I said, it counts how many times you as a player had finished it. So the only way a person would have the fully updated one is if they've been playing since the very beginning and never skipped out on a single event. Like, that's crazy. Even I as a player, like, despite having played the very first one, I don't have the complete one, mostly because the first one was too hard and I'm lazy. I don't really use this background, so I was like, I'm not gonna bother, but you know, it's a fun little badge. It's an insanity meter. Yep. Yep. Hakata slaps us on track to remind of Sit Up Del budget. Oh, baby boy. Or baby accounting boy. Next. Rapid Shokodai Kare Mitsutada. Oh boy. Here's another funny one. Of all the things we could get a collab with, Japan Railway was probably not on anyone's list of ideas. Japan Railway granted Shokodai Kare Mitsutada the title Honorary Station Master as part of a promotional collaboration for Hanamaru. A stamp rally was held alongside a special train, stamp rally, and themed lunches inside the train. Rapid Shokodai Kare Mitsutada is loved. Yes, we love our official guy who has a job. Look at him. Choo choo, choo choo, Mitsubo. So, there's a special illustration done for the collab of one of the characters, Shokudaikiri Mitsutada, one of Date Masamune's swords, as a train station master. And that's the special train they had for him as well. And here's a standee of him. I think this may be at the station. But yeah, this ran on for quite some time. And it was a source of memes too. It was a good time. Never forget Rapid Shokudaikiri Mitsutada. He looks dandy. He does. Like, he's always in a suit as it is, but white just hits different, you know? Atsu, Atsushi, and Dotanuki and Dodanuki. So, in the initial release, these two swords they had their names rendered differently. It was originally Atsu Toshiro and Dotanuki Masakuni. But after some time, they decided to change it to... well, I'm not too familiar with, like, the semantics of why they chose to change it, but they just basically chose a more traditional way of calling them. And this one is interesting because they wrote lines for the update for the characters to address this. I should have the picture here. There we go. So here are the book descriptions for Dodanuki and Atsu. I've highlighted the parts where they mention that there's an alternative way of pronouncing their names, but it doesn't really matter to them. It's like, yeah, you can call me that, even if this is what's on my ID tag. Yeah, Tanuki-kun. I still call him Tanuki. Like, it's such a cute nickname, and he does have very Tanuki vibes to his appearance. And there's Atsu saying, my name's sometimes Atsu or Atsushi depending on the literature, but I'm still me. It's a very interesting way to tackle the change because they didn't have to like write this into quote-unquote canon, but they went and did it. So that's just one of the fascinating things about this franchise. Rekijo actually helping with sword conservation and restoration efforts. This topic is one of the reasons why I just can't leave this swamp. This swamp's so good, so sweet. So as mentioned above, the series often collaborates with museum and shrine exhibits, and this isn't just for tourism or just to sell merch. Bigger collection that Doda's has something to do with Kyushu regional dialects. Oh, maybe. Right, it's insane. So, this one is on a different level of the iceberg compared to the collaborations because Rekijo, which are women who are very enthusiastic about history figures, which is kind of like a tangent to this one because the swords are wielded by many famous historical figures. They would actually help out with crowdfunding regardless of whether it's an official collaboration or not. They do not get anything fandom related in some cases. They just want to help. Like, they understand that it's for cultural preservation. So they would help out in efforts to raise money for maintenance, for acquiring swords from private collectors, things like that, or even just rebuilding shrines that own some of these swords. It's just, I think it's quite heartwarming because their passion for the game and its characters really just extends that far. Like, even if it's not like advertised, like, oh, you get a special limited edition item if you help out with this, they don't mind. Like, one of the earliest ones I can remember, but you not only have a harem of sword dudes, you learn JP history based, I know, right? One of the earliest incidents that I know of, I couldn't find a direct article for this, but they actually helped Tokugawa Museum acquire Shokudaikiri Mitsutada amongst other swords. Like, this was you have to understand, this is very, very early on in the franchise. They were just kind of getting started with playing with the idea of museum collaborations and the like, and these people were like, oh, that's the sword from this game I really like. So since the real thing has been found is trying to get maintenance, I'll help and chip in. And usually these things meet their goals so quickly. Like, it's insane. Like, they're asking for millions and millions of yen, but thanks to the enthusiasm of sword fans, they can usually reach these in less than a week. Sometimes even promoting tourism in small towns that house these swords. Right. There's a lot of museum documentaries that you'll find on YouTube. Sometimes they will mention that tourism has gone way up ever since the game has launched because more younger people are having an interest in seeing the exhibits, because back then there was this notion that the only people interested in seeing these swords were like old guys, you know, like the traditional types. Like the youth wasn't that interested in these, but because not entirely because of Touken Ranbu, but primarily because of Touken Ranbu, according to the museum people as well. The museum staff will explicitly mention it at times. They've experienced a boom in revenue, and they're always so thankful for it. So it warms my heart. One of the incidents that really stuck with me for this one is the one case of Sanchomo. I'm actually quite frustrated because this actually had a written article and a video documentary, but since then it's been deleted and I wasn't able to save it. But basically, the Setochi City has been trying to acquire Sanchomo for the longest time. Like, they've been at it for years, but they kept falling short of their crowdfunding. Actually, I think that's what I have linked on this. Let's see if that's the thing. They basically couldn't meet their goals, and they couldn't use the taxpayers' money because here we go. Where is it? Here, I'll highlight this part. So, understandably, the taxpayers weren't going to be happy about their taxes being used to maintain a sword because, like, yeah, it's culturally significant, but it doesn't necessarily impact them as an individual. So it's like, I kind of understand their apprehensions for it. So in this case, they turned to crowdfunding. But I think they've attempted it 3 times and failed twice. They just couldn't get promotions for it. And in this documentary I saw for it, they said that if their last attempt failed, they were just gonna give up on getting the sword because, you know, they've tried so hard and failed several times. So sometimes you just know when to give up. But thankfully, the last crowdfunding attempt they did coincided with Sanchomo being featured in Touken Ranbu. So that got so much more eyes on the sword itself and its whereabouts. And consequently, the crowdfunding, now I must reiterate, this wasn't planned. Like, Digitaro makes a tweet on Twitter quote retweeting the city mayor talking about the crowdfunder, that he thinks it's serendipitous that they put Sanchomo in Touken Ranbu the same time that the crowdfunding was running. And because of that, they finally met their goal. They got to get him. So it's been wild watching that acquisition happen, because the Setochi City Mayor is actually quite active on Twitter, like just the government in general. So if you paid attention, you were able to watch them count the money, talking with the owner and stuff like that. So, of course, there's also like the official crowdfunding related to Sohaya, Hotaru Maru. If you look into the game's history, they've done so much culturally for the preservation of swords that it's hard to imagine what would have happened to these if the game wasn't around. Like, I mean, maybe some of them would have still been funded, but maybe just barely, you know? Like, it's very rare that you can say a fictional weeb-oriented franchise is able to do this much in real life for people who aren't even that deep into like the fandom culture or being online. There was a museum in the southern part of the country that was damaged in landslides, and while they didn't house specific swords, they had Dodanoki and a Tadahiro. So Saniwa and Drifters fans immediately piled on to spend money on them. Similarly, Saniwa joined in on some random yari that needed repairs and in fixing the walls at a castle related to Nikari. If I remember correctly, there was a official promotion there. Oh! Wow, that's cool. I think I remember this one. Like I remember seeing some tweets about it, but of course, since it wasn't official and I am not that well versed in Japanese in the first place, I couldn't read as much. But yeah, it's something that I wish could happen more, you know? It's a very good study, right? Basically, Saniwa loves spending money on two things: merch and history preservation. Right? So it's like, you know, like people rag on Touken Ranbu being like, haha, hot guy simulator collecting game for girls, ha ha ha. But it's like, I can't help but get offended sometimes with that, because like, okay, yeah, that's true, but also you can't discount the fact that these fans really do genuinely care about these outside of the fandom concept, you know? And that's not something you could say for everything. Like, not to rag on it, but the most I've seen for some fandom is just making like anime manhole covers, which also just kind of invite vandalism at times. So I don't know if you guys have a standing to rag on Touken Ranbu fans like that. Insanely jealous of the history preservation that the Saniwa are able to provide. Wish all artifacts around the world got the same. Yeah, like I could talk about that for so long, but maybe that's a topic for another time. We have so much more entries to get through. We are doing so much and they don't see it. Protecting history, like what our old geezer Mikazuki says. Yeah. We doing good by our old man. And oh, actually that was the last one on this layer. Awesome. So, again, I'm gonna take the opportunity to thank everyone for sticking around and chatting with me. I get super offended when people diss it. Like, y'all, these are people are dedicated and have impact and rated fields. Right? Like, dude, if you can't appreciate the game, that's fine. But it's like, you have no right to dunk on us. we do a lot of work. Okay, so we are moving on to, can I count? That is, we're going on to the fourth layer, which, whew, this is a lot. Okay, deep breaths. Everyone good? This is layer 4. This one's a lot, a lot, quote unquote, more obscure, because these are stuff that are subjective in terms of interest. Like, if people don't know this, it's probably because it's not their cup of tea, which is alright. Like, you don't have to consume everything a series has to call yourself a fan. Sometimes you just enjoy certain parts, sometimes you don't enjoy the other stuff, and that's okay. You're still a fan if you like it. So, but I'm here to show off these weird things that may have either passed under your radar or you weren't able to appreciate back then. Starting off with the fact that Kurikara, Dodanuki, and Kane-san used to be all Tachi in game. Here we go. Is it going? Hello. There we go. It's a bit small, but here are screenshots of the announcement to change this. And their old assets, which have them labeled as Tachi. Saniwa protecting history just like in game, right? Like, I mean, like, we're not obligated to do so, and I don't think they would call us hypocrites for not doing so, because it's like, that's not necessarily in everyone's means to help out, but here we are. Izaminya boy. So, from what I remember correctly, if I remember correctly rather, this change was made to have more Uchigatana in the roster, because this coincides with the release of Era 6, which promotes the use of lighter swords such as the Tanto, Wakizashi, and Uchigatana. So at this point in time, I think the only new sword we've had so far was Hakata and Nihongo. And like, Nihongo is a Yari, so he wouldn't have done very well here. And prior to this, most people focused on Tachi and Odachi because you know, they were strong. They had high defense. They could wipe things out very easily, which meant that in order to play these new maps, people may have had to scramble if they weren't raising these other sword types well enough. So in order to help with that, basically the game was like, okay, we'll revise and add a bit more to the roster, with these three being included in that, which from a real life standpoint makes sense, because these three, well, actually not sure about Dodanuki, but as far as I remember, Kane-san and Okurikara were shortened to meet that one law that forbade swords of a certain length from being owned by common folk. Like, I think this came with like the change in government and the like. So them being quote unquote shortened does make sense. And there was also memes of this when it happened. Like, people drew these boys being slightly smaller. Like, it was just like 2-panel comics of them standing, then suddenly they shrink. Basically, the thing about Touken Ranbu is they make memes out of anything, which is quite endearing. It's a fun stay here. That's pretty much it for this one. Next is left-handed swords. Okay, this is a fun one. Most characters wield their weapons with their right hand. However, there are some who use their left, most notably Chiganemaru, Akashi, and Onimaru. This thing is passed by a lot of people, which is fair, because you would assume that most of them are right-handed, like in real life. And from my understanding, the way that sword play is taught, they prioritize right-handed movements. Like, you know, same with scissors, same with writing. But there are hints of some characters being left-handed. Let's show them off. Oops. Did they miss that? Oh no. Okay. I have pictures of it, but I think I forgot to put it in the slideshow, which is a big oopsie. Let's give me a moment. Why is it? It's supposed to be in here. Oh really? I totally missed Honebami, but okay, so it's actually here. It's just not in the correct order. There we go. I didn't want to like put out too many examples, especially since some of them are a bit tangential. yeah. I didn't include Onimaru because it's a like it could be a it's not as solid quote unquote as Akashi and Chiganemaru. Like, some of them are a bit like you can still contest it. No, not really. That's just coincidental. But for these two, it's like there's 2 instances each, so it's easier to show off. As you can see, Akashi in his awakening switches to left-handed wielding, while normally he uses his right. But it's like, if you would think, oh well, maybe that's just for like composition's sake, which is fair, but it's also like sword in swordplay, you don't just change your dominant hand because like that's where your swinging power is at. Then this is reinforced by the fact that in one of his exhibit illustrations, he is explicitly drawn holding it with his left. Like, you can't get any better than that. Then Chiganemaru always wields his sword with the left, which could be attributed to the fact that he's also like, his fighting style is implied to be him mixing it with Tei, like the martial arts from the Ryukyuan Islands. So, Hime, someone's asking for confirmation. So, anyway, Shiganemaru is more obvious, as you can see here, compared to the other 2 Ryukyuan treasures. He is the only one that wields it with his left, which is interesting because some people might say, like, at least for me anyway, like, you could theorize that maybe he does this because he portrays himself as Chiyo's shadow, so it's like he's mirroring them of sorts. Apart from these 2, there's so many other swords actually that are left-handed. You just have to look. So if you're bored, you could look through their sprites and see which ones count as these as well. I personally love the left-handed swords because once you find out which one's which, you're thinking, Yeah, you do act like a lefty. Kanebami is left-handed normally, but is right-handed in Awakening Spark. Really? Huh. Somehow I miss this and I use him so much. So like, yeah, that's another thing, because like you see these sprites all the time, so it kind of like becomes normal in your eyes and you kind of miss details like this. So if you're bored, go check him out. Oh, another thing. Oh, it's Kaze. Wait, hi Kaze. So I was just about to say, Kaze in discussions has actually pointed out that you can actually also tell which ones are left-handed depending on the positions and where some of the decor they wear on their queso is. Like, Kaze, if you could, it would be great if you're able to explain it in chat, because you're more in the know of that idea than I am, so I'll probably butcher it if I try to do it without a script right now. And it's so nice to have you here. Kinda agree, since left hand is used on the base of the blade, which makes the swinging power more stable. Also, maybe the owners of these are low-key left-handed. Oh, maybe. I don't know if you have ways to confirm that, but yeah, that's another possibility. Like, again, Touken Ranbu has so many possibilities for thoughts like this, and you won't necessarily be wrong. It's just go on, put on your tinfoil hat. Moving on. Where are we? Funyashi is a Saniwa. Okay, first of all, thank you so much to Nyanya for submitting this one, because this one's really funny, and I actually did not know the full context of this for the longest time. I love these hidden depths, right? Like, these are like little details that didn't have to exist, but they're there. And it's great. It makes staying here so much fun. So, Funyashi is the official mascot of Funabashi Chiba, and they're a Saniwa, and their favorite sword is Sengo Muramasa. In fact, they like Japanese swords so much that sometimes they would do auctions, like they would join auctions, and they actually won some of them at some point. Here's one of them being presented with the the sword they won bids for. Legendary Sani Funyashi. Excellent taste too. And I've linked to the Iceberg an article collecting a lot of their Sengo tweets. I highly encourage you check that link out, because they actually post quite a lot about him. It's like, oh, I like this sword, and oh, I accidentally won an auction. And here's a photo that Nyanya has gracefully allowed me to include in this Iceberg video. It's the official collaboration between Touken Ranbu and Funyashi. They got to do it, so it's a dream come true for them. Featuring a sword and Funyashi, a standee of Funyashi dressed as Sengo. They also have a picture with Junichi Suwabe, the voice actor for Sengo. So it's like, it's so nice, and I'm kind of envious of Funyashi living out their Saniwa dreams. Sengonyashi. Yeah, right. So again, open up the Iceberg later when we're done here, and there will be a link to the collection of their tweets. I highly encourage, because it's so fun to look at. Where are we next? Old Village of Treasures format. I think, whoops, spoiler, I misorganized this one. So here, hang on. So, the event format was originally more similar to the rest of the gameplay, but was revised in February 2021 to integrate the Hanafuda cards further into the gameplay. So back then, the Hanafuda drawing cards wasn't really like how you would actually play the game traditionally. It was just kind of a way for them to have better illustrations of like the more randomness mechanic of the game mode. Oh, that's okay. That's okay, Mono. Welcome to the stream. I haven't missed too much, and again, the stream will be archived, so you can easily rewatch this if you can't stay. Although, like, once again, thank you so much for dropping by. Paying for music instruments. So, Village of Treasures focuses on collecting beads that serve as your points in order to gain rewards. to get things like supplies and most notably event swords that debut in these events. As of present, it's known as the Go event because majority of the swords you can get from these are from the Go school. But it didn't used to be like that. The first Village of Treasures exclusive reward was actually Monoyoshi Sadamune. And I think that's long since been forgotten because it's the first iteration of Village of Treasures was not great. It was hard. For like, without going too much into it, it was hard. Like, it really punished you for having bad draw on the cards. We'll get to that a little later. I mean, they fixed it after a run or two, so now it was more playable, but yeah. Top left, original easy map layout, which is just going in a circle. Used until April 2017. Then they overhauled it into the one on the right, which is you have to pick. Actually, I should explain. So the new version has you actually picking cards in order to collect sets for them, because as soon as you complete sets for each of the cards, this is hard to explain because I don't actually play Hanafuda, but in each one has a certain point value and it allows you to raise the enemy difficulty to like gain higher rewards. So you have to be clever about choosing what type of enemy you fight in order to complete sets and considering the fact that you could actually beat them in the first place. It's a mouthful to explain in words, but once you play it, it's quite intuitive, honestly. Vault 1 was pain, yeah. Like, on top of like the servers kind of being terrible at the time, they didn't even have the function where if you disconnect, you can jump back in where you left off in the event. Like, you just lost that run if you got disconnected. It was awful. Was grinding during school hours because of how hard it was and still didn't get him. Hibe, I just gave up on that. I was very sad because I really wanted Monoyoshi and the servers kept dying on me. So I'm like, oh, okay. I'll get you some other time, baby boy. And okay. My favorite topic. Thunderbolt Fantasy collab. Let's move forward in the slideshow that I misorganized. There we go. Thunderbolt Fantasy is a martial heroes themed or wuxia puppet show Budaishi produced as a collaboration between Pili, Good Smile Company, and Nitro Plus. For April Fools, they created a short skit of Mikazuki Monechika and Lin Shueya interacting, with the joke being that they are both voiced by Toriyumi Kosuke. So here's the picture, like this is an official photo they put up for it, of a puppet they made to look like Mikazuki Monechika, specifically just to make this gag. Like, they only used this for this one gag that they took down after like a day. Like, once April Fools was over, they technically took this down, but of course, people saved it and re-uploaded it. There's a link to it in the description, which I'm not gonna play here just in case I get in trouble, but for your viewing pleasure later, you can check the description. There's a link to a Niconico upload of it. And I just have to remind you guys, please don't re-upload it. We don't want to get in trouble for this. We don't want to get it taken down, then we lose it again. We don't want this one to be lost media. At least I don't, because I also really like Thunderbolt Fantasy. Please watch it, it's fun. It's canon in my heart, right? Like, I mean, the fun thing about Touken Ranbu's concept and the whole time traveling and stuff and space and time, you can't say this doesn't happen. Like, we know that Mikazuki gets up to weird things when the Saniwa isn't looking. Who's to say he didn't go and meet Lin Shueya? So, you'd think that was the end of it. But, they had a follow-up. This time the joke was Sengo Muramasa shares a seiyuu with Shangbu Huan, the game's protagonist. I didn't get a picture of them interacting, but yeah, here's Sengo Puppet. It's interesting because in order to move these puppets' arms around, they have sticks on the hands, so these are hidden with like long sleeves, which is quite normal for the attire of the puppets in that theme, but since Sengo has bare arms, they had to modify it somewhat to hide it here. And I think he actually looks quite cool. There's also a pic of Sonico in a wedding dress holding a puppet Gigi. What? Wait, really? I've never heard of that. Like, now I have to look for it. But yeah. In order to make him more suited to be a puppet, they gave him sleeves, which honestly, I kind of wish they did alternate art in Touken Ranbu because I think this design is super cool. Anyway, again, it's another Seiyu joke. He has the same Seiyu with Shangbu Huan, which is Junichi Suwabe. And it's quite funny because for Toriko, the acting he does for either character is more or less the same, and the personalities are both the same. Like, they're kind of like slimy, mysterious. People are very suspicious of them. While here, there's a contrast between personalities as well. Metro Plus was booting in an event and did that. They're so chaotic. So, Sengo is quite flirtatious and weird. Like, people might say he's into SA, but not really. He's a good guy. Like, he's just a little weird. And Shangbu Wan is cynical. He tries to pretend like he doesn't care about other people, but he's actually a sweetheart and he's an old man. So, to hear them conversing, which is basically just Suwabe doing two different types of voice acting, was great. For the bit, so in the story, there's this magical scroll that contains all sorts of mystic weapons and cursed weapons. Sengo is said to be cursed. So they made a version of the scroll prop from the anime series, which has Sengo in it, alongside some other swords that appear in the franchise. So the idea was Shang dropped the scroll, then out came Sengo for some reason. Then they had a little sparring match. I feel like Shang would facepalm at Sengo's antics. Yeah, he would. Again, both the April Fool's one with Mikazuki and this one with Sengo, links are in the description. Check them out sometime when you can. But after the stream, please stay here, please. Please. Okay, enough begging. Next one is Grand Blue Fantasy collab, also known as Fate Horizon. In promotion of Katsugeki, Touken Ranbu collaborated with Grand Blue Fantasy for a special event scenario featuring some of Katsugeki's cast finding themselves in the Sky Dome. Okay, here's another one. There we go. So, in Grand Blue Fantasy, if you played the event, you were able to get Mikazuki, Izumi no Kami, and Yamambagiri as playable characters. They're all individual units. By the way, I just edited this together so it's easier to showcase. I mean, he did travel in the current times twice for the NHK show. Mark of Beauty. Yeah! See? Like, that's just the things swords do, man. Anyway, Grand Blue collab. This was a very significant thing on the Grand Blue side of things as well, because Mikazuki Monechika was the first collab character to be at an SSR rarity. Like, they've had collabs with other franchises before, but the characters were always SR level. So, once again, Touken Ranbu's cultural impact. And they also allowed players to unlock the Samurai class for free just for playing the event. The Samurai class in Grand Blue Fantasy otherwise has to be unlocked in a bit of a complicated way for new players, but here, in order to encourage players to play and use the in-game swords, they unlocked Samurai for us to play with, which is pretty cool. Getting into Grand Blue Fantasy for Touken Ranbu. Yep, that was me. And I know some of you guys as well. And now I'm also stuck in Grand Blue Fantasy. Help. Please, someone help me. Oh my god. Anyway, so this was in promotion for Katsugeki. So the characters are from the first and second units. And it's quite unfortunate that this storyline still isn't in Grand Blue side stories, meaning you still can't replay this even after the event has been over, probably because of some legal stuff with UFO still holding the license for Katsugeki, which is sad because honestly the characterizations for the sword boys featured in this collab was wonderful. I love it a lot. Like, I would say I would say I like the characterizations for them better than what they did in Katsugeki, but maybe just an opinion. IP mainly, if I'm wrong. Yeah, so unfortunately, despite newer collabs such as Love Live, Kimetsu no Yaiba, being free to play for players who have gained enough rank points in Grand Blue, you still can't play Katsugeki, the Katsugeki collab, which is a true shame. So it's kind of like the only way you would be able to play this again is if you played the first iteration in the first place. Which is sad because that was like what, 2017, and of course if people just tried it for the collab and like Grand Blue Fantasy's playstyle isn't for everyone, that's for sure, then if they never access their account again, then that's that. I actually tried to upload the whole story here on YouTube, but they didn't like that, so those videos are not accessible right now, which I'm kind of upset with, but what can you do? To be fair, it's easy to get better, more interesting characterization of Katsugeki. That's true, but it's like they didn't have to go that hard. Like seriously, like I'm so mad that these aren't inside stories in Grand Blue, because these are amazing snippets of characterization, especially with like Mutsu thinking about how the sky works and musing about trying to jump off the ship with Tsuru. Like, God, please, UFO, I would hate you less if you just let them actually put this inside stories. I'm begging you, just that one thing. I will ignore the fact that you're playing with us with the movie. Just please, Fate Horizon and inside stories, please. Western collab is gonna happen soon, so I want to put Reading Ring for GG. Oh yeah, like you have. I do know someone who's like a GG fan who's actually ringed his unit, which I respect that. And I think Hime, don't you have your Manba ringed? Which, congrats on the marriage, by the way. I wish I could marry Tonbo as well, but he's only a not Katsugeki weapon in Grand Blue Fantasy. Wait. Anyway. You ringed Manba with plus 300 plus marks. Respect. That's the Manba wife. There we go, everybody. Who is sword number 1? I don't have pictures for this, but for anyone who isn't familiar with the concept, here we go. The game features a sword book which lists all the currently available swords with additional entries for their Kawame forms and are assigned a corresponding number. None of the currently available Tenkagoken, also known as 5 Great Swords of Japan, Shichi Seiken or Kogarasumaru, the former two being special quote-unquote ancestors of the other swords, have been assigned number 1, making it a center of discussion for players. So yeah, if you open the sword book, you'll see that Mikazuki is actually just sword number 3, meaning he is not number 1. And after some discussion with Kaze, it is quite logical that this is probably Dojigiri, but I mean like because it makes sense. They would have planned for him from the get-go to have all Tenkagoken in there. But you know, it's still a nice thought. Like, what if it isn't him? Who could it be? So it's a lot of food for thought in this sandbox game. Not much to say about it. Maybe one day we'll get confirmation whether or not it's Dojigiri. Even if it's not him, I just want him in game already. Dojititi or Riot, let's go. But I mean, like, we can't conclusively say that he is number 1 yet, because we don't have proof of it. Like, there's strong evidence, but it's not canon yet, so you know. Missing Primordial Touken Danshi. What if it's like that, there's that one mythical sword, right? Like the one that's stuck on a mountain, like a Amaterasu something? But yeah, there's a lot of interesting candidates, you never know. Still in the primordial soup. Yeah, they're still cooking him. Next one is Sanju Bridges Modern Landmarks. Again, thank you to Nyanya for this submission. This one, I did not know about this at all. But now that I think about it, maybe I've seen fan art of this, and unfortunately I couldn't find any to feature here, and that it would be in bad taste to pick up someone's art without their permission anyway. So, Map 62 was based on the real-life Sanjo Bridge located in Kyoto. However, currently, the bridge has shops specifically located on some in-game node areas, which made several Saniwa give those nodes nicknames depending on the location. It's also why there are several fan arts of the Tantos taking a detour during their mission and enjoying some drinks in Starbucks. Nyanya came in clutch with this one again, giving us a picture to work with. I did not put it in! Oh my god! Hang on! I just spoiled 2 entries! Ah! Wait! It's here! I swear I have it! I swear I'm prepared! I know what I'm doing! Wait! Not again! Wow! Ba yan? You can tell I procrastinated on organizing this until just earlier. Here we go. I found it. Let me, hang on. I can still save it. Hang on. Embrace the scuff. No! No! I refuse to be scuffed. This is gonna be archived. I do have it. I just forgot to put it in the order. Wait. Here we go. Let's rescale it. Hang on. Scuff count 1. No, this isn't increasing. Shut up. Wait. There we go. So, Nyanyo provided this excellent diagram of the nodes in question. Sanjo Bridge and Sanjo School. Who's having the nuclear space? Okay. I thought this was in reference to the Sanjo Bridge. Anyway, so here, Nyanya has labeled the spots in Sanjo Bridge that happen to align with the current location of interesting landmarks such as Book Off, Starbucks, and Lawson. This looks pain. Tantos arrive at Boston 15 minutes late with Starbucks. I mean, come on, that's such a long map. Like, they've had to fight so many teams of enemies by then. I think they deserve Starbucks before eventually rolling a wrong turn before the boss node. They keep going to Lawson. What do you think they're buying there? Right. Now it's like extra funny when they make wrong turns, because maybe it's not wrong. Maybe they just wanted detours on purpose. So like let's cut the boy some slack. Oops. Hang on. Okay. So once again, Nyanya, thank you so much for the submission. This is amazing, and I wish there was a tag for the fan arts, because I would love to see them. Okay. Next is swords unique to each adaptation. Okay, so as the name implies, as it turns out, if you check out the other adaptations, such as Muso for example, sometimes you will encounter swords that are not in-game, but they're there. It's a token danshi. I chose Omokage here because there are some in other adaptations, but they kind of constitute as major spoilers, and they're never really featured in official adverts, like official released photos. Well, one of them was, but they never tell you which sword it is. So I just went with Omokage just to like get you guys interested in checking it out and finding them for yourself. Redacted from Toega. Free redacted, like, okay. I'll read out the description in the Iceberg because I did write up a decent one here. Here we go. There are swords who appear in the musical, stage play, muso, and even movie which do not appear in the original game yet. However, one of them has recently been implemented, so it may be possible to see the others join the game's roster as well. I'm choosing not to link to images of all of them apart from Omokage, who appears in Touken Ranbu Muso, because every other example doesn't really have official releases outside of the adaptation itself. Okay, so just for the sake of discussion, for people who are watching this and don't want to be spoiled about one of them that happens to be an example of this, cover your ears for a little bit. Like, once Omokage is off screen, I'll stop talking about it. The one I implied to have gotten in-game was Inabago. this is kind of an interesting case because while Inaba's character in the musical does have official photos, they never actually explicitly say it's Inaba. This is only inferred by his master in the musical, who also appears there. And honestly, if you look at how he was designed in the musical and how he looks now, it actually quite matches up. And to the fans of the musical who saw the sword preview for Inaba, they probably saw like the clothing. It was very, very similar to how it appeared in the musical. Redacted in the basement. All these jokes are so funny because, like, yes, redacted. Redacted lives in our hearts. Which one? Yes. Anyway, that's enough for spoilers on that. Like, again, this is another incentive to check out other adaptations of the franchise because there's some boys you'll only meet there. He has that line too, the intro line. Yeah. Like, his intro line is, he failed to conquer things under heaven. Stuff like that. But yeah. You told you that, I got goosebumps, like good goosebumps. Yeah, right? Because, like, it's not that they ever said this was impossible until prior to it actually happening, but it's like, it took so long for it to actually happen, so it's pretty amazing. Okay, enough of that. Card Fight Vanguard commercial featuring Hiroshi Tanahashi. This one's funny. Okay, so Hiroshi Tanahashi is a wrestler. And fans had been telling him that the character Nagasone Kotetsu resembles him. So in response, he told the fans that he would, the next day, or at least like on his next appearance, he would style his hair like the character. So this was him quote-retweeting the fan saying that, oh, Nagasone looks like you. And then here's a picture of him actually doing what he said, that he styled his hair to look like Nagasone. And the sweetest part about this is he did eventually get to be quote-unquote officially Nagasone for a commercial to like promote Card Fight Vanguard's new booster. I'm lapsing right now, but yeah, here's him in the outfit, and there is a commercial that is actually available still on YouTube, and I wonder if we could, I could probably play it, whatever, like, heck it. Again, it's linked on our, I have it muted anyway, so it'll probably be fine. Oops. And let's exit that real quick. So yeah, again, it's linked in the Iceberg. You can go check it out if you want. It's amazing, and he looks like he had a lot of fun doing it, and he really does look like the part. Like if Nagasone was just your casual guy out and about on the streets, that's how he'd look like in my head. Oh, it's the overdress one, right? So yeah. Did I miss anything else? Oh, okay. Roxy, this one's for you. The next one is Yakiniku Monechika. This one's very, very vague. So, in relation to Card Fight Vanguard, this special rarity card of Mikazuki Monechika is dubbed Yakiniku Jiji because his prices in Japan at some point, like, I don't know if this still applies, like, in modern times because I wasn't able to check, like, listings for the card, but basically at some point, he was said to be so expensive that the amount you're paying for him is basically going to be the equivalent of you going out to have really good yakiniku somewhere in a restaurant. So here are screen caps I took from some Japanese users, which I happen to censor out their names just for privacy because also these are very old tweets of them. GG is still the rare dude. But again, this particular one. So the card is SP rarity that features a gold foil signature of their voice actor, which is like, it's kind of like an autographed thing, except you don't actually have to go find Toriko for it. Yeah, here we go. So the post on the post on the left is something that was done for a hashtag that was started in 2020. Basically it was like a fun trivia sharing tag for new Saniwa. So older Saniwa were sharing like these jokes and stuff. And the one on the right is an older tweet I found, which states that his price range used to be around 5,000 to 7,000 Japanese yen. So for a card, that's quite expensive. So that's really why this is of note. So he's like, as you can see here, he's been referred to as they got to skip the Yakiniku because they already had him. So your GG fan runs to Oblivion to get him. Right. Like, I don't know if I'm unaware if like the effects of this card is any different from the regular GG card, but yeah, it is a very collectible card. And honestly, if my own favorite sword had something like this, I would love to get it myself. So there's that. GG blowing up people's wallets as usual. Oh, and again, that one was for Roxy because Roxy was the one that reminded me of Yakiniku. GG. Again, thank you so much for your help finding those tweets. God, Yakiniku GG at such a discount. That's literally the same as normal. Oh, I see. It's really just really just for the fans. Mikazuki has no underwear. Remember how I said we were gonna come back to Toriko peeking under the life-size Mikazuki scale fig? Because fans found out that the 1/8 scale figure Mikazuki does not have any underwear. So like, just for context by the way, again, thank you so much Hime for helping me out with this, because guys, these pictures were really hard to find. Like, it seems like the original poster had deleted them a long time ago, so of course they don't appear in searches anymore. They may have been reposted, but Google didn't pick them up, so I had to call back up for Hime, and Hime said they had to get it from someone else who thankfully managed to save it. And the funny thing about this is it's not just with the scale fig, it's also with the Nendoroid. So it's not a haha they didn't bother. This is on purpose, because here's the picture. Oops. There we go. As you can see, this one user also broke the pants on Kogi, and Kogi has underwear. GG does not have underwear. Like, by the way, these figures are not cast off. Cast off in the sense that you could like cast off, like take off the casts of the clothes. The person that owned these broke their figures to do this, just to show this off, and honestly, salute them, guys, because this is a gem. Like, this attention to detail that people would have not seen otherwise. So yeah, I also linked the source to the one for the Nendoroid because this one was not deleted just yet, and I would like to pay respects for that person still having their blog post on my figure collection up. So yeah, GG. I mean, like, historically that's pretty sensible. Like, back then they really didn't wear underwear all that much, but it's funny to see that Kogi has it but GG doesn't. So right, thank you for your sacrifice, OP. You will never be forgotten. Anyway, enough of old man butts. Next we go on to something a bit more concerning. We're going into Kebishi lore. So, we know those Kebishi, right? The annoying guys that get in the way of your farming, and if your team composition was not balanced enough, it would ruin your run. You'd have to go home. This refers to the vague captions that accompany the Kebishi encounters in sorties. Each caption varies according to which map you encounter the enemy. So, before the English server was launched, most of us probably missed this because, you know, majority do not read Japanese, and you wouldn't expect this to be different, but for each map that you trigger the Kebishi on, it says a different thing. So, it was actually telling a story all along. Kebishi comes, Todanshi runs. So, like, for the longest time, there was a misconception with Touken Ranbu that, oh, well, it doesn't really have a storyline or whatever, but it did. It actually did. It's just that they hid it in the dialogues of the Kebishi, which was a double-edged sword because most people would avoid even like infesting their maps with Kebishi in the first place, so these were often lost to time. And again, it wasn't until recently that we had the English server, so unless people went looking into the wiki, which by the way, thank you so much for the mods of that, mods and editors of the wiki, because enjoying this game would not be all that possible without their help. So again, everyone say thank to them for their efforts for keeping it updated as we are. Like, honestly, I feel so spoiled with the Touken Ranbu wiki, because when I look at other game wikis, I'm like, oh, this is outdated, or this doesn't have the thing I want. And like Touken Ranbu, the coverage is extensive. It's very impressive, and a lot of the things I discuss would not be easily corroborated without their hard work. Actually, yeah, I am about to get to like specific examples of Kebishi dialogue that I thought would be interesting to include. Anyway, here's the Kebishi leader, the Yari. Remember him? We'll come back to him shortly in the next entry. Okay, for these screen caps, as much as I have my misgivings about how stuff is written in the Ian translations, these are official, so I thought you might as well go with these, just to be fair. So this one is from 6.2. The Touken Danshi and the Justicars, that's what they call the Kebishi in English, both groups of time-traveling hunters, are confirmed enemies. Could this change? For now, it's impossible. The reason? The Justicars proactively kill humans in their quest to conserve history. They have unquestionably eliminated survivors who contradict historical fact, and now they have come across a new target. I also forgot to mention that the term Kebishi is not something that's just made up. It's actually a reference to an old police body from the Heian period. Here, I'll read you the definition from Encyclopedia Britannica. It is a body of police commissioners who constituted the only effective military force during Japan's Heian period. They were originally created in about 810 AD to deal with the disturbances resulting from the conspiratorial plots of the former Emperor Heizei. Then they proved their effectiveness and grew larger. So this contributes a lot to the lore, because this might have been intentional. For what reason, we're not sure yet. It's a lot of theory fodder. But the thing is, like, why did they choose to call these enemies after this police body that actually existed? Like, does that relate to their actual purpose? We don't know. Like, all we have are these snippets that we get from meeting them in battle. Miki is so good. Thank you, right? Whenever you can, be respectful to the mods and editors of that wiki. Here's another one from 7.2. This like the dialogue for Kebishi encounters is pretty mundane until you get to like era 6 or maybe like map 5.4. Like, it's all just like, oh, we were fighting, then another person came about and joined the fight. It was mostly that until they started to get spicy. Oh, hi Nyanya, yes, I'm still live, thank you. We actually just finished discussing your contributions again. Thank you so much. They were so good. I think everyone enjoyed those quite a lot. Everyone say hi to Nyanya over here. Anyway, 7.2. So this one says, something about the Justicars seems to resemble us. An illusion? Either way, I take firm hold of my blade as they come at us. Like, you can't just say that the Kebishi resemble the swords and not elaborate. Like, that's all they gave us for the longest time. Check out the archive later. Yeah, thank you so much. Like, I'm not deleting the archive after all, and I made this mostly because I'm too lazy to do any editing, so doing it live and just saving the stream is easier. But yeah, like, thank you so much for dropping by and saying hello. Anyway, so they're really just implying something's up with the Kebishi, that they seem to have something in common with the boys, which is a bit concerning. Let's be real, especially when you consider that the Kebishi icon is an Ouroboros, a snake eating its tail. Then you tell us, oh, they seem kind of familiar. And one of the more latest I think this is the latest one, maybe. I'm sleepy. So this one is from map A3. The Justicars make no distinction between your forces and the History Retrograde army, seeking only to eliminate all in their path. They're strong, but lack any kind of finesse or strategy. It's possible that the Saniwa who dispatched the Justicars interferes with their ability to properly reason. It's like, first you say, oh, they kind of act like Touken Danshi, but then it's also like they're kind of unreasonable. Then suddenly they drop us, oh, they probably have a Saniwa too. Like, what? You can't just keep dropping us these crumbs without elaborating for months or even years on end. Well, I mean, they could. They've been doing it, but what do we do? What do we make of this? Like, it just makes us so eager to get new maps, just to get more bits of Kebishi lore. But since the first chapter of the main story has been concluded, hopefully we don't have to keep relying on that format for more lore. I mean, like, it's kind of sort of a baseless thought, but you know, wishful thinking. HRA being more insane. So that's food for thought. Kebishi is a third party that is neutral in the sense they're neither friend nor they're not friends with either the army or like the retrograde army or the Touken Danshi. They just don't want people time traveling. They want history to stay as it is, no ifs or buts. If you're not supposed to be there, they will try to get rid of you. That's pretty much it. And the final entry for this layer, relating to the Kebishi, I'll explain why in a short bit. The corrupted sword theory mainly refers to the similarities in poses of some of the swords and the enemies. This concept has been around for a very long time because, you know, like the visuals, more like a middleman. Middleman is like negotiating in between, but I suppose in a way. Anyway, since these are like, there's not a whole lot of different visuals in the game apart from enemy sprites and the sword sprites. After a while, people started noticing some similarities in poses. Now, again, I must reiterate, this is a theory. This has not been necessarily confirmed. So I'm gonna show you a compilation I did of comparing some sprites of the enemies and the swords. There was actually an original image that has done this long ago, but one, it was deep fried, and two, some of them didn't really seem all that similar, so I chose to omit them for my take on this. Here we go. It was not cropped properly, but yeah. So I chose these ones because one, they look the closest, and two, they're in the same class. So this one is the enemy Uchigatana, and it's similar to Kane-san's Awakening, who is an Uchigatana in game. Yeah, enemy Yari and Tonbo. So the Yari and our Yari. I would also like to point out that this one is probably the most weighty in a way, like in my opinion, because in case you didn't know, the enemy sprites were drawn by the same artist that drew Tonbo. So, you know. And then there's the Naginata and there's Iwatoshi. And you remember how I said we were gonna go back to the Nagai Yari in the Kebishi? And how the implications that it might be also like Touken Danshi, that maybe from the future trying to stop us from doing what we're doing right now, is that the Nagai Yari is an enemy that's unique to the Kebishi. Like, you cannot encounter a normal version of this enemy. It's always just the leader of a Kebishi team that you encounter. It looks like Otegine if you tilt him sideways and flip him over. It's like, that's freaky. Like, that's very concerning and like just a lot of food for thought. As a segue, as a Yari fan, I feel like I'm obliged to tell you there's actually some fan art based on this. Like, they basically draw Otegine in the Kebishi armor. So it's like, that's kind of hot, but also, baby, no. Yeah, it's very sus. So like, I am both excited and terrified for more updates on the Kibishi, because this might be confirmed or debunked at some point. So yeah, this is a long-standing theory that honestly keeps holding a lot more water as time goes on. Yeah, I mean, like, this is my stream. I can say my faves are hot for being evil, possibly evil. Corrupted sword fan hurts, but hurts real good. Yeah. Like, I think, like, okay, the problem here is I really am just kind of bad at Pixiv and I never check the tags, but there might be a tag for it. But there's a lot of fan art for it. Not just these guys with comparisons, just generally the idea of swords being corrupted and having to be put down by their teammates. It's heartbreaking but delicious. So that's something to check out if you're bored and like pain and angst. That is the last for this layer. I'm gonna sip more water. You guys take a drink and stretch a bit. So far, it is, oh my god. It's almost midnight here. I've been streaming for almost 2 hours. Thank you so much for sticking around so far. Again, quick water break. Unshrimp yourselves. Thank you for being here. I did not refill my water. I think I only have 1 chug left. Do not chug your coffee. Do not. That is... Guys, don't do that. You're gonna hate yourself because you're gonna have a caffeine high, then you're gonna crash. It'll be a bad time. Please do not chug your coffee. Chug water though, however. So let's move on to the next one. This is layer 5, if I know my numbers. We're starting off with another contribution from Nyanya. Hasebe Kusokora Grand Prix. So, Hasebe shitpost edit Grand Prix. Basically, it's just a collection of shitposts that fans have made centered around Hasebe. Like, I saved one here. The Iceberg links to a compilation, which, by the way, if you're gonna go in there, I think all of the links are still active to tweet, so maybe don't retweet them because most of them are like from 2015 and 2016. That's just gonna be really weird. Just you can browse them, just don't retweet them. Okay, so oh, I forgot about this one. Wait, let's just go back to the corrupted sword theory real quick. So this one's new from the recent regiment battle. They put out a sword that seems to be an Uchigatana that's gone to their version of Kiwame. Why do I have this here? Remember how the original Uchigatana looks like Kane-san, and now this one seems to have gone to Kiwame and also has a ponytail? You know? Right? Like, I remember you also made mentions of like wondering if I'll include this, and there's your answer. Like, this one kept me up for a few nights last month. Like, why is it going in this direction? Like here, just to show you a comparison. Like, look. Right. He even has a Wakizashi pair sword. Like, why? What are we supposed to do with this information when you guys won't update us for like months or years on end? Like, thanks for the pain? And it's interesting because in comparison to swords, when they Kiwame, they get all like sparkly with like the white light motes and stuff. The enemy sword turns muddy. Like, Touken Ranbu is so good at lore edging. It's too good. Please stop. And those leggies. So, what are we supposed to do? Like, are we supposed to expect more Kiwame enemies? Am I going to cry? Oh, hi, Let. Oh my god. How many people are here? I don't see the viewer count and I'm too afraid to check. Excited for 2035 when you find out what's going on in this game ever. Oh my god. And at that point, we still don't have Katsugeki movie. Anyway, that was just a little segue I forgot to mention for that last topic. We move on to the next one. Hasebe shitpost Grand Prix. This is one of my favorites. Like, I don't even wanna. I don't know how to explain. Just look. Look at what they did to Hasebe. Please. And as an addition is, I like, or not like, I love the fact that this is called a Grand Prix, because there's another joke about Hasebe comparing him to horses, because for the longest time he was the fastest Uchi in the game. So, you know, horses are fast. I feel like Saniwas who were actively there in the Hasebe edits era are qualified for a veterans discount. Yeah, I'm one of them. Please, my back hurts. Anyway, it's Grand Prix is funny because of the Hasebe horse jokes, which I will show a fan art here that I know I said I wasn't going to like feature fan art because, you know, like taking stuff without permission, but this one has kind of been orphaned by the artist. Like, I did actually manage to track them down. However, their submission of this was privated on Pixiv, so I don't think they want to be associated with it. So I'll just tell you what the username was for when this was posted on Twitter. Here, the joke here is, Hasebe was so fast he could keep up with swords that were on horses. So, you know, like, Grand Prix jokes is hilarious. Let me just open my folders real quick so I can tell you the alias the artist used at the time that they uploaded this. They were known as Kato_MGMG on Twitter at the time, but yeah, they've since then either deleted their account or changed usernames. And on Pixiv, this work is privated, so I'm not gonna tell you which person they are on Pixiv, but they're there, still making art, thankfully. But yeah, Touken Ranbu has existed for so long that's kind of interesting. You can tell it embodies different eras of internet memes and fandom trends, right? Like, it's really just playing into the whole time travel thing it has going on. Like, that definitely wasn't on purpose, but it's here, it's happening, it's amazing. The Gungin, the Hidden Toast, right? Yeah. I was thinking of featuring that one too, but again, like, I do not want to promote piracy for 2.5D stuff. Like, I think it had an official image, but I couldn't quite find it, and I couldn't ask people for help because it would spoil the entry. TKRB is evolving with the memes. Memes are the DNA of the soul. Damn straight. So yeah, that was like kind of a double entendre. Next is no Kanehira and no Sadamune. Oh god, I feel old thinking about this one. So this refers to the joke that Uguisumaru and Mitsutada would mention these respective swords. Okay, here. Uguisumaru and Mitsutada, being part of the initial batch of swords released for the game, would often mention Okanehira and Taikogani Sadamune, who would not be implemented in-game till years later. This ended up being a joke every time a new sword was teased, and it did not turn out to be either sword. This was especially funny because this is funny because every time there was like a sword teaser that was revealed and it was not either one, there were like these meme drawings people would use to reply to the tweet, like of it was either Ugui or Mitsu, like just kneeling and yelling in despair because it wasn't what they wanted again. I couldn't source these, unfortunately, but if any of you guys have like some of the entries here that I could not have images for, like share them with me, like either DM them to me or like make a tweet for it yourself, because you know, like it's a fandom relic. We should not lose these, because of course now that Okanehira and Taikogane are in game, these were never really used after that. Now that's us with Dojigiri. Weh. My god, how long are we gonna wait for Doji? Anyway, before I spiral into despair and wailing about him too hard. The next one is Shinano Toshiro's Kiwame revision. Shinano had a different Kiwame design at first, until it was later found out it was referencing a different person known as Shinano, apart from the one that owned the actual Tanto. This was funny because They literally did not find out about this until they released it, and it so happened to be closely lined up with an exhibit for the sword itself, so they had to quickly backtrack and do a revision. This one rolled over a lot faster than the one that happened with the Yamabushi. I can't really explain why, but yeah. I have pictures of it here. Here. One day I will properly write on how to embodies its own proponents of folklore. Please do, because I'm still mad about this one essay that just kind of ragged on Touken Ranbu for this and that clearly they didn't do enough research on it. Anyway, here's comparisons of Shinano's first Kiwame design. The first one is up top, then it was quickly revised to the one we have at present, which is the one on the bottom. Mainly the difference was that the first one had like those horn ornaments and had plate armor compared to the current one, which has more of the... Oh no. The term escapes me, but basically a more traditional Japanese type of armor for Shinano. You know, it's like quite interesting how things have to be constantly revised because, you know, history is still constantly evolving and being rediscovered every day. Like, you have to keep moving forward with it, and sometimes these things do happen. It's not necessarily for a lack of trying, but what's important is that they went back and changed it, because ornaments, yes. Side eyes A and N. Ugh. I am gatekeeping Touken Ranbu from A and N until they can get one of us to join them and do the articles for them, because they keep getting it wrong. How do they keep getting it wrong? Anyway. Oh, A and N. My dearly detested. Next. Kaika cards in Village of Treasures originally did not stack. Did I get a screenshot of this? Here we go. Here is a screenshot from the wiki's entry on the very first iteration of Village of Treasures. Here's a reason why it was such a bad time. The demerit cards were very punishing. So the poison darts at present, they only damage your swords a little bit, like maybe like 5-10 hit points. But back then, they would literally knock out a bunch of your swords. So if you get this, your run was probably more or less ruined. Again, I will have to remind you guys, this was at the time we did not have Kiwame yet. Like, losing 1 to 2 swords from your run was awful. And then Kaika. So like, as we all know, the Kaika cards, when you get one, it boosts your gains for bead drops in that run by double the amount. But if you get it again, it would become quadruple. So these were like the best cards you could pull for, because it makes your run extra efficient, assuming you finish it. But in the first run, if you got it twice, it removed your bonus. So you actually would not want to see this more than once per run. Village of Treasures was a problem child starting out. So honestly, I am very glad they quickly fixed this, because it was frustrating. Very, very frustrating. Second pick. I'm mailing you a bomb. Pre-Kiwame implementation? Yeah, very old. Old. I think... I'm trying to remember when the first Kiwame is implemented. That was either 2016 or 2017. And the first Village of Treasures happened in like October or November 2015. So, oof. Oops. Where are we? Map 5-4 branchful. Again, another suggestion from Nyanya. Thank you very much. Do I have a picture for this? I don't remember if I do. We'll find out. If you have a Tanto... Oh, wait, no. I think... Oh, I don't remember. Brain poopy, but yeah. In map 5-4, there's a special rule that in the branching nodes between going to the boss and not going to the boss, if you have a Tanto, Wakizashi, Uchigatana, and Tachi in your team, you are guaranteed to hit the boss. I don't know if this is lore significant in any way, but that's a thing, and it's a thing that not a lot of people know, because they don't tell you this at least not directly in game. It's if you check the game manual in the bottom of the screen, this does come up in there, apart from being mentioned in the wiki. But yeah, if you were farming on 5-4, this was very nice to know. Also, although kind of hard to pull off, because you at the time you would have to bring a Tanto, which again, probably not Kiwame. So even if it guaranteed you a turn at the boss node, you might not be able to get that far if the enemies bullied your Tanto. Next is Kami recipe. Prior to recommended recipes for smithing campaigns, there was a so-called godlike recipe Saniwa often used to try and get new swords. The recipe was 525, 680, 680, 595. And as it mentions, there's something linked for this entry, and it's a thread on Gaia Online, which is the earliest mention I could find of this so-called Kami recipe in English. It kind of resembles Kankole in that branching needed certain types of units in a change progress roadmap. Oh! Well, I didn't play Kantai collection. Not for the lack of trying, I just couldn't get into the lotteries all that much. Anyway, so that's very interesting. Like, that's more resemblance to Kankole, which, again, put a pin in that. We'll come back to it later. So, the Kami recipe has been, like, lost to time for a long while now, because these days, whenever we get a new sword, there is a recommended recipe that apparently helps you get that sword. Like, have any of you guys managed to get the campaign sword without using the recommended recipe? Like, let us know in the chat. But yeah, back then there was no god. You just had to like go in there blind, spamming your resources until you managed to pull the new sword. This is also why it spawned the belief that your attendant had a role to play in how good your smithing luck was. That's why sometimes when you see people share their smithing results, if they manage to get the new sword, people would often ask, "Oh, what's the recipe and who's your attendant?" Because, you know, like, we were just kind of grasping at whatever it made it feel like things mattered and stuff. Used to do all 777s. Yeah, I always wondered why smithing threads mentioned who. Yeah, now you know, like, because that used to be a thing. Like, this was never proven, but it kind of felt like it mattered. Like, Kankole thing versus. Oh, I see. That's very cool. So, like, that really just shows how there was a lot of foundations to people just calling Touken Ranbu a Kankole ripoff. That's so cool. Again, this is why I am so glad to have you guys here, because a lot of these things I do know, but not as intimately as you guys would know. That's why having this discussion is so important. So, that's pretty much that. You guys can discuss about it a bit more, but we've still got several more entries to go, so I'll get a move on now. China server exclusive backgrounds. Before we got the EN server, China had Touken Ranbu first in their language, and it was, of course, like most things in the Chinese region, it required an ID, I think, or a local phone number to be able to sign up for it. Oh, oop. I forgot to fix the description on this one, but basically, the Chinese server has exclusive backgrounds, which I have pictures of here. There we go. Which do not appear in the Japanese version of the game. It featured stuff for like Chinese New Year, as like that one on the top right with like beautiful lanterns. The one on the bottom left, like middle left, is for a festival, I think. And like, I don't know, these are just gorgeous backgrounds, and I used to be so envious whenever these were shown off. And I wish we still got them in the different servers. Like, I get that because these are seasonal for like events that happen, that are more significantly celebrated in China compared to elsewhere. That's why these are gotten there. And like, Touken Ranbu doesn't really celebrate holidays apart from game anniversary and New Year, so it kind of makes sense. It's also like, these are so pretty. Why can't I have these? Yeah, like the quality of life ones. I was thinking of including those as well, but it also felt like I couldn't corroborate them as well. But I know they got the concept of like buying XP boosts earlier than we did, partly because event releases there were like expedited, like they got releases super fast so they can catch up, which was I like that is kind of hectic, and we're kind of seeing that with EN as well, which I kind of feel bad for. But from what I know, they had like I think you're able to buy the special conpeito, at least something of that high value in China, to like help you raise your swords faster. And CN servers are being accept the pass. Oh, so if you're able to share that later, that would be good for everyone to see. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think the Chinese server might have like Chinese subtitles for the boys when they speak their dialogue. Like, could you confirm that, if that's a thing or not? But yeah, like if that's the case, that would be very useful, honestly. Anyway, let's move on to Taro Tachi is an Aoi. So in game, Taro Tachi does not have a listed scored grouping. However, while not officially listed in-game as being part of the Aoi school, the Otachi bears an inscription that reads Sueno Aoi, referring to being made by an Aoi swordsmith, not an individual named Sueno, in the years 1352 to 1367. This actually makes him related to Juzumaru Tsunetsugu and Nikari Aoi. So like, the fandom notion is that he's siblings with Jirotachi and all, which makes sense because they're meant as like pair swords in a way. But in terms of smithing groups, he's actually an Aoi, as I've mentioned before. That's why it's kind of a shame in a way that they don't give and having the Kumamoto within like a week of launch. Yeah, like this is never addressed in game, and I wish they did, because the actual sword has an inscription that says Sueno Aoi. So while you don't have to classify him as an Aoi in game, you could at least write some interactions or recollections with him. And I mean, it's not too late to do that still right now, but it's like, why haven't you yet? Like, this is amazing. Like, and it checks out too, because the Aoi school is known for creating swords that are normally meant to be enshrined, which is what Taro Tachi is. And why Juzumaru is also special in that right, because he's like owned by someone who founded a sect of Buddhism. And why Nikari's case is so special and interesting, because he was considered a bit cursed because he was said to have possibly killed the ghost of a child, which is, unholy. That's not something spiritual swords do, which really it gives so much depth into how he acts and his attitude towards this and that. Like, it's a lost opportunity, and I hope that the devs decide to one day address this at some point, because they can still add recollections, Yeah, like Nikari and Yuzu don't even have a recollection together. I love when fanart is like Taro's as much of a little weird as Nikari and Yuzu. Yup. And I think this is also why there's some fan art theorizing about Juzu's eyes being gold, because Nikari's one eye is gold and Taro Tachi's eyes is gold. So it would make sense since they're all in the same school, Juzu's would probably be gold as well. And I hope when we get his Kiwame, his eyes finally open. I will be obsessed with that if they did that. It's a secret technique that I love using in fanfics, Taro being an Aoi. Is thank you for doing the Lord's work. It's just good tidbits to like make writing these characters more interesting, Then that aside, I'm very happy to have shared that, because I feel like every time I bring this up, there's always such a strong reaction to it, which makes sense, because Why is this not used more? This is Touken Ranbu, you're missing out. Moving on. The game used to be very buggy. This is just like, it's just really funny and like kind of a nice throwback to like seeing how far we've come, especially with the quality of life changes. Earlier on, there were various bugs that were commonly found by players, typically visual assets not loading in, leaving blank spaces and screens. More notably was after how a certain update, Jirotachi's Uchiban sprite was incorrectly aligned to the game screen, making them appear to be stuck in the roof. So, I will bring this up because I have pictures here. Nikari has both ice gold in his Kiwami. Yeah. That's I'm glad they addressed it too, and like that makes me feel so much for him more. Nikari is just a great sword. This is about to turn into a Nikari love mail if I don't control myself. Anyway, examples of screenshots of Touken Ranbu bugs, which for some reason keep featuring Okurikara, which, buddy, we know you don't want to be here, but buddy, why are you a bug magnet? So, the first one is, for some reason, in UTC, Kuri went to battle in his Uchiban. And the next one on the right is an example of the school asset not loading in. This one's actually my screenshot of Monoyoshi. Jiro, for some reason, is stuck in the roof after one update, which it's like it really makes you think how this happened, because as far as I know, he was the only sword affected like this. Like no other sword got stuck in the roof. So it's like, you okay? You had too much to drink, buddy? Bottom right, go on girl, give us nothing. Like I said before, for some reason all of these a lot of these involve Kuri, and that screenshot is Kuri. That's a Kuri drop screen. He did not want to be there, so he just peaced out. Didn't want to be there, right? Like, my god, his energy is just, I respect that, buddy. Me too. I don't want to be here most times either. And the battle screen just shows the asset for like the enemy, one of the enemy units not loading in. Self-explanatory. The one for Ugui Sumaru, if people can't read Japanese, for some reason his name reads Sohaya no Tsurugi. Ugui is now Sohaya. I don't remember why this happened, but I found it, and so yeah, the game is drunk sometimes. I don't think there was much buzz about the Ugui screen cap either. Like, I just found this in that one tag that shares things that new players might not know, and I've also censored the player's name in it because the original screen cap showed their username, so, you know, just to be respectful. So thankfully we don't get much of these days, although it's kind of like a funny charm in of itself. Leave me alone, please leave me alone. Me too, buddy, me too. And finally, for this last layer, Mikazuki and Kogarasu Maru were originally implemented as R4 Tachi. I don't know. Honestly, I have no deep explanations for this one. Basically just that for some reason when they put these two in at the first time, they were not rainbow rarity. Like, I actually first thought that the GG one was a bug, but then I noticed that the alignment of his name and sword classification matches up with old screenshots of the game, so this is more or less confirmed. And there's Kogarasu Maru with like the special background instead of rainbow. He was changed to match it a few months after his implementation, which makes sense because lore-wise, Kogarasu Maru is considered to be the foundations of what eventually defined the characteristics of a Japanese sword or Nihonto. Although he's kind of still also resembling the midway of a Chinese Dao because he's double-edged. But like, that's very specific lore. I could discuss that some other time. If you guys have suggestions for next streams or just videos, just let me know in DMs or the comments. Yeah. This looks so off and wrong. Grandpa is not remote. Yeah. It's like a weird Uncanny Valley vibe thing. And I'm glad to have dug them up just to curse you all with it. Yeah. Like, if you guys saw me tweet about like me saying like I'm holding some stuff and it feels like illegal propaganda, these were the ones I was talking about. Like, why? Why? Are for eligible for a veterans discount. Well, that Koga screenshot is mine, so give me all the discounts, baby. And that is it for this layer, which is, once again, I've lost count, but yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close. I will not scroll down just yet, just to keep the last layer for last. Thank you again for sticking around this long. We have maybe 12 more entries to go, but these ones get vaguer and vaguer, which is honestly I'm very excited to discuss. So for this one, we are layer 5. I don't know, I've lost count. Registration Hunger Games. Okay, this is less of a meme than anything else, but it's more of an experience. It's the iceberg is actually the Tommy chair. I'm not explaining that one. I had to. Like, Doro, Twitter free our boy Doro. Doro suggested the Tommy chair, and I had to. Water break. Yeah, okay. Let's have a water break. Like, whether you have the drink, gotta go to the bathroom, stretch, have a little break, everybody. My back's kind of hurting, but I'm having a great time with you guys. Thank you so much for dropping by. And it's a good idea to take a break now, because these will be a mouthful to talk about. Oh, you did not trust me. You are lucky you weren't there, because it was a bad time. People, like, you guys don't know how lucky you all are that you missed the registration Hunger Games. We'll be sending you extra stuff after this. Yeah, like, take your time. Thank you so much. Like, we could always just share it in Twitter afterwards. Like, just tag it. Again, thank you so much for your help and everyone's suggestions. Registration Hunger Games. During the first year of Touken Ranbu, getting into the game was extremely difficult as new servers filled up within days of opening, and new ones had to be added almost every month. So like, that sounds crazy, right? Like, thinking of it now, like, new players or just people curious could just go on and sign up anytime they want to, and they can play. They can play right away. But back then, you had to fight to get a slot in the server because they only had so few servers at the time with small capacities that they would open servers and in less than a week it would be filled up. Then you had to wait at least 2 weeks to try again, because registrations was not like Kantai Collection, which was regulated by lottery. Here you just had to sign up, get in the game, get in a server, you're good. But I remember the wiki tutorial about this. Oh god. My god. We're so old, you guys. 2015 Saniwas, no. So, like, I've mentioned this before for the Village of Treasure discussions, that the game was very unstable back then. You couldn't breathe on the browser or it would disconnect. Especially if you had to like access it from overseas. Like, did you guys know back then you didn't even need to use a VPN to access the game? You just had to like use the cookie flag thing, which is basically just type a code into the browser console and the browser thinks you were in Japan. Then you could play the game without using VPN. But now, life is hard. Yeah, they used to ban you for constant refreshing, so you couldn't just like be like, oh, okay, it's loading slow, I'll refresh. No, you will get in trouble. Like, that's how weak the servers used to be at that time. So the idea now that anyone could just log in is very amazing, and I'm very, very glad, because I think Hime, you shared to me that when you first tried to play the game, you had to wait months to manage to get in and play an account, right? Like, I could not imagine how that's like, because I didn't know what I was getting into, but I was very lucky to have managed to get in just as the new servers were opening. Granted, like, I the game anniversary counts my anniversary as like April 15, I think, but technically it took me 2 days of trying to get past the opening screen to actually get into the tutorial. So technically the first time I actually got to play the game was April 17, but the account was registered at 15th. So wild times. 3 months. You had to wait 3 months to meet your husband. Dedication, man. Want to play the game in Feb, got late June, man. Well, now you're stuck here. We're all stuck here now. So, I am very glad for New Saniwa that you did not have to suffer like this. Enjoy your citadels and how easy it was to get started. Best decision of my life. Yep. I do not know where I'd be right now without Touken Ranbu. It's just consumed me. Urashima and Nagasone as KBC exclusive drops. RG lost their keys. I had to wait for replacement keys to start running them. My god. How careless of you, Mitsuki. You haven't even started and you already lost your keys. I should draw that. Urashima and Nagasone's KBC exclusive drops. So, this one's another funny thing to bring up because most people know that the exclusive drop swords, well, actually not even exclusive anymore, but back then, Higekiri and Hizamaru were only obtainable by fighting the Kebishi and getting a good enough ranking to get them as rare drops. However, even before that, it was actually Urashima and Nagasone. I have proof. I have pictures of the campaign. There we go. It's so fun. It's also wild to think because in conjunction with this, they had these campaigns where they would give the Kebishi a drop rate up for these two. Like, I think it was a times 10. And because it was so well received, they ended up making that rate a permanent. So could you imagine how hard it must have been to get these if it was increased by 10 times at that point? The graphic design on this is dated. I know, right? Like the choice of fonts, the colors, the glows. Every day I'm greater that my husband and my turtles are smithable. You should be, because I'm about to tell you the story of how I got so good at beating the Kebishi because I wanted Nagasone so badly. All of my maps at the time were infested because I wanted him so badly. And somehow, he did not want to come home. It took me like playing a war training expansion event to actually get him. Like I infested my Kebishi and got really good at fighting them, only for him to come from a method that didn't even involve those. Like, thanks, big guy. Why, sir? What did I do to deserve this? Like, Urashima I got like at the first time I fought a Kebishi, I think, but oh my god, Nagasone. Then, for context between when this stopped being a thing, when they replaced it with Higekiri and Hizamaru, whom actually debuted in Regiment Battle, I didn't get them in the Regiment Battle because my swords were too weak, and the first version of the event was also like extremely laggy because of like the snow effects they put in, which they did remove, but it was still very hard to play because again, servers were unstable. They didn't have the thing where if you refresh the browser, it would save your progress in an event map. No, you just lost that run. You don't get the rewards for it. So needs to be. Yeah. There were some runs of Nagasone in War Training. There were some runs of WTE where they had Nagasone and Urashima as drops there. Like, they rotated the drops for it because at the time Nagasone wasn't smithable either. It really wasn't until that like big smithing overhaul that he became more common to get. And so, yeah. So everyone who has these guys easily, Again, you are very lucky. You did not have to suffer like we did. Oh, right, the story about Higa and Hiza. I was so salty because when they changed it so that they were the new KBC drops, I got both of them in my first couple runs of KBC effortlessly. And I still didn't have Nagasone at the time. I don't know why he hated me, but he did. So, wiser. Next is... You know why I get so pressed about any like game leaks of any kind? Because Touken Ranbu used to have them. Here we're gonna discuss the malicious Chogi asset leak. So, in the early days of Touken Ranbu, it was quite common for people to be able to data mine the files of like new swords or even new Kiwami before the maintenance was even over. So it was like spoiling stuff for everyone, which was kind of annoying, honestly. I wasn't very fond of it, especially since a certain account only did that without any other contributions to the fandom. But I'm not gonna spill the tea right now. That's for another time. Anyway, yeah, Touken Ranbu used to have data minings and leaks. But the worst one was when Chogi debuted. Okay, so as you all know, Chogi is a special investigation sword, but when he was first shown off, much like the other investigators, they didn't tell us who he was. They just showed us the sprite of him in his mask and the hood up. But like, of course, there's a lot of his features that say he's Chogi, but we did not have the sprites for him until they didn't officially show his face until like maybe 2 weeks while the investigation was ongoing. You had to actually get him, but somehow while Touken Ranbu was still like building up hype and doing drip marketing for the event, like just showing these like, oh, you have to play and get a good rating so you can get this new sword's identity. For some reason, someone had the leaks. Someone managed to leak his sprites. Like, I think this was even before the event actually started. Like, they were just posting the mechanics, and there was this person spamming his revealed images in the replies. I think the account either got deleted, suspended, or whatever, because I tried to source those tweets, those leaks, but I couldn't find them on Twitter. But yeah, you could not look into the replies of the staff tweets that day because someone was just spamming it everywhere, and everyone was like, why are you doing this? Stop that. Like, people were just trying to block it, report it, but they were everywhere. Even if the tweet wasn't necessarily about the event or Chogi, they would post his face there, and it was very, very infuriating. Chogi was the most notorious leak. Back then, if you wanted leaks, you actively had to look for them. Exactly. Like, you know they were there, but they wouldn't get shoved in your face like it did here, because, of course, if they're leaks, they're not meant to be released yet, so you wouldn't post them under official tweets, but this person did. So people who were just trying to find updates and see what other people thought of the new info suddenly had it in their face. Like, they were trying to give it as a surprise. Like, that's kind of heartbreaking that people would do that. Like, that's why I call it malicious, because clearly they wanted to ruin the experience for people who saw that tweet. So that's why I really can't stand leaks, especially if people like do it in conjecture with Touken Ranbu. I'm gonna keep myself from ranting about this, but yeah, please, as respect, if you like a series, please try not to patronize leaks. Like, you could consume them, you can take a look at them, but try not to like promote looking at them, because you're kind of undermining the staff's effort into making the experience the way they want to show it to you. Like, it's coming to you eventually. You could afford to wait a little bit. Wait, so Nagasone, the sword of the Shinsengumi commander, Kondosami, being a special police force. Yeah, right? Like, that's very interesting. I forgot, like, good catch. Like, I didn't put 2 and 2 together until now, but that is something. So yeah, leaks bad, guys. Try not to eat too much leeks in your diet. Touken Ranbu Jinriki. Once again, thank you for this contribution. Before most of the adaptations were fully released, making song covers using Sword Jinriki was very popular. The tag on Niconico Doga still gets new uploads from time to time. So, okay. Jinriki, basically it refers to custom voice banks made by users using samples from voice lines of characters, which is kind of, there's a bit of like a moral gray thing going on there, but it's like basically as long as you don't say it's official and as long as you keep it away from the corporate eye, it's probably fine to do. And these covers were actually very, very good. So basically, in a nutshell, swords became Vocaloids. You can get them to sing as long as you knew how to tune them and had the voice banks for it. And these were actually very, very well made as well. Like, I love looking through these back in the day. But since nowadays we have the musical and there's also songs in the stage plays, and we just generally get more content for the swords, and now we don't really have to do this sort of thing. But these are works of art. Like, some of them are so well tuned and sampled that you would think it was actually the voice actor working on it. So when you have the time and you're bored, I highly encourage you guys check out the works in this tag. But once again, do not repost these. A lot of them will have notices that they should not be posted outside of Niconico Doga. So let's respect their wishes, because they've put in so much effort into making these. The least we could do is respect how they want these to be distributed. Next is... okay, clearly I have bias here, but listen, it's fandom lore, and it's kind of funny, honestly. Wrong uploads for Sanmeiso attendant music. So in Touken Ranbu, the Village of Treasures event highlights collecting instruments in order to be able to unlock special tracks that play to as a theme for the swords you have as attendants. And for some reason, oops, not that one yet. For some reason, the versions that were uploaded for the Sanmeiso, the first ones they were not the final version that was meant to be uploaded. There were like drafts for some reason, like, and no one had noticed for months on end. Here's the caption. It took 6 months for them to notice, like, oh, we uploaded the draft versions. Oops. So they had to announce suddenly in November that, to like admit to their oopsie, like, oh yeah, that music you've been enjoying, that's not actually the final one we approved. We just made a wrong upload and didn't notice until now. I know that the wiki still has the old ones archived as well, and it's honestly quite interesting to compare, because it's almost as if it's like a comparison of their Kiwame forms and the regular ones. Like, the original ones were quite good, and it does fit the characters as a motif, but the finalized ones definitely nail more nuances to their characters, which, by the way, if you've been sleeping on the attendant music, you totally should, because they're amazing pieces that really put so much depth into the characters just by music. Like, could you, like, if you think about it, that's crazy. Like, they have all of these beautifully arranged musical pieces for each sword. Like, I mean, as most of them so far, like, that we're close to 100 tracks by now, and all of them perfectly encapsulate each character's personality and story. Like, they didn't have to do that, and like, these are all free. As long as you play the game and get the instruments, you can get these and listen to these for free. Like, that's amazing. Like, talk about budget and like just a passion for what they do here. BGM and EN win. Oh yeah, like, that's another thing, that EN doesn't have the music, which I guess might be a distribution issue, which I hope gets resolved at one point, because EN really does miss out on that. But again, the wiki is there for us. You can check on the currently available music there, and especially if you can't buy them in game, because you have to buy them to get the whole song, and if not, you only get a small preview in the shop. So there's just so much media to consume with Touken Ranbu, and it's honestly quite overwhelming. Which, again, as I said earlier, it's okay if you don't consume all of it. Like, sometimes you just have to pick the ones that jive the best with what you want to look at. That's okay. And like, it just be a fan the way you want to be. Like, there's no such thing as being a wrong way to do it. Apart from being mean to other people, like, you know, just don't be an ass. And that is it for this layer. We're getting real deep now. So I think this is the second to the last layer, and as far as I know, both this and the last one only has 4 entries, so 8 more to go, guys. We're almost clocking at 3 hours, so I'll try to speed this up. So, first one on this new layer, old assets. You've seen this earlier. Here's another veterans discount age test. If you recognize these, you're qualified for a veterans discount. Pretty much, these were again, I'm only sharing this as what was theorized and talked about amongst the community, but it's said that these were changed out because there were apparently brewing legal issues with these, because like apparently the Buddha icon and the horse images were referenced off something that's still under copyright, which it's not the exact same thing, but it's the likeness is too close for comfort, so they had to revise it. And the plaque up top, the Ofuda was not originally Ofuda. They were originally Emma, or like wishing plaques that you use at shrines. Was there for the Emma, but not the map horse and old Omamori, right? And here, the old Omamori were not just like white and blue variants. The white one originally is the bottom one, the gold one with like a pentagon shape. Oh no, a geometry. And the regular one was just a pink one up top. All of these were changed at some point, and as thanks for the support, despite like all the issues that came with it, they actually gave out some gifts to the Saniwa, which included 3 pieces of the special Omamori, amongst other things, and a bunch of Ofuda. I think, if I remember correctly, the pink Omamori is so pretty too, right? Actually, like that's what I was about to say. I think the Omamori and the Emmas were actually made into merch back then. I mean, of course, they had to discontinue it, apart from these being very old items. But if you look hard enough, you might be able to find physical versions of these, which are very cool to have as memorabilia. Next is various unannounced sprite adjustments. So we've discussed Yamabushis and Shinanos, which were accompanied with an official statement from the developers, but there's some that they just kind of quietly changed because, well, I can't say why they didn't mention it, but they did that. So examples here, at least these are the ones I know of. There's Mitsutada, because Mitsutada was drawn at the time that he wasn't discovered yet. Like, he was discovered in mid 2015, so like the game had already launched. And basically what happened to him is like they adjusted how his sword was drawn to be a bit more faithful to how the sword was actually discovered at present. It now has a more prominent shinogi. The hamon or temper line is made more subtle, while the tip is more defined. Unfortunately, my current layout has it clipping up top, but these pictures are linked in the Iceberg, so you can view them at your leisure. And for Chatanakiri, the pattern on his clothes now more accurately depicts the Yayama Minsa, a traditional textile pattern from the Ryukyuan Islands. The first version did not make it in-game and was only used for the full design reveal for the sword on Twitter, which is how I managed to get it. If you look closely, the way they laid it out in the first one is a bit sloppy, because it's like, it really just feels like a digital image overlay on top. So before they released it, they revised it, so the version in game appears to be more like an actual proper weave. Yeah, it's very obscure. Like, I only found out about this because some fans were also discussing it and comparing it, and were quite happy about the change. So as you can see here, it's clearly more of an actual woven design pattern, which, a little bit of trivia, the Yayama Minsa is actually quite a sweet idea for a weave, because apparently it's a pattern commonly used for fabric given by wives to their husbands, which basically it's supposed to be like a number pun in Japanese, which roughly translates to the message of "I want to keep seeing you." Like, it's like homonym puns, I think. There's I think I'll, if I haven't already linked it in the video description, I'll link you guys some articles about the Yayama Minsa that goes into that pun, but it's like such a nice thing to include for Chatanakiri, because there's of course there's a lot of other textile designs out there that they could have used, but not only this one more popular, but it's quite fitting for how Chatanakiri is, like, because he's like be honest, he's sort of a kitchen knife, right? So that kind of works with the whole wifely vibes, especially in his decor collections where he's the more serious one of the three. I mean, like, because like Shiganemaru and Chiyo are a bit more free-spirited than he is. It's quite nice. I think there might be another one for these, but I couldn't find sources for that or proof of it, so I might have just been dreaming it up, so I am refraining from mentioning it. Unless you guys know of it too, so if you do, sound off in the chat. And we are moving on to Konosuke moves in the background. So this is in reference to this special background that has a giant Konosuke mascot in the back. Most people don't, somehow it's not well known that sometimes when you move in between screens, Konosuke will actually change his pose from, like, he's usually just standing still, like the one on the left, but occasionally he will lift his foot up and, like, as if he's moving in the right one, which some people found cute, some people found creepy because suddenly he's moving but he's still staring into space. Yup, Chatan is a mom brother. Right? So, like, it's like, people have mixed reactions to this one. I think it's kind of funny, and of course this once again spawned memes of Konchan is watching you. Like, people would draw him like kind of creepily, eerily staring in the background, because it's like this was a promotional background originally put in game because Konosuke was entered into the Mascot Grand Prix as an entrant. He didn't win, if I remember correctly. I think he placed quite high though. He made it into the finals, if I remember correctly. But then eventually they put this in the seal shop for people to claim after, because it's just really fun and cute. Yeah, he just wants a hug, and he does look quite cuddly. And, well, he's been working very hard for us, so who knows what will happen if we don't give him a hug. Anyway. Oh god. I forgot I included this one. Oh. We're moving on to the final entry of this level. The Touken Ranbu and Family Mart swimsuits. Okay. So, way back when, in 2015, Touken Ranbu collaborated with Family Mart to create a line of merch, which included swimsuits. These were on pre-order and they sold out very quickly because, you know, like, wow, that's really cool. I can get sword-themed swimsuits. And unfortunately, they were quite disappointing because when they arrived at people's homes, they were so poor quality as to be basically unwearable. There were people that said that they were so cheap that they would disintegrate from body friction alone. Like, this is a swimsuit. You're supposed to be wearing probably only this in public. then it would do that. That is terrible quality. These should not have been released in that manner. And Kogi's swimsuit came out banana yellow, not gold as it was advertised, and there was apparently someone's picture that showed off how Surumaru's, being white and all, was so thin and sheer it was raunchy. You could see people's nips in them. So they totally flopped. And the picture on the left is, I think this is from one of their old anniversary exhibits, but it features the Mikazuki swimsuit next to a cycling set for Hasebe, which I don't think was in the same collection, but I couldn't find the source as to how the Hasebe one was able to be purchased. But yeah, cycling Hasebe. Another joke on his mobility, I guess. And that's it for that layer. We're moving on to the final one. Wow, we got here. We're almost done, guys. Once again, many thanks for hanging out with me. Hang on tight. Just a little bit more now. This is as far as I can scroll. The final 5 entries at the very bottom of the Touken Ranbu Iceberg. Oh boy. Oh boy. These ones. Final sprint, let's go! Let's go! Okay. God, I'm looking at these right now and I'm like, oh geez. The first 2 ones have the word controversy, so you know it's gonna be good. Imperialist scenario writer controversy. Here. Users found comments made by one of the people involved in writing for the game with imperialist tones and making fun of the fanbase. Nitro Plus later issued a statement reassuring its players that the person's individual opinion does not reflect on the game's contents. So, you know, like, it's just kind of an awkward thing to have comments on. Like, it can't be helped that there will be political connotations when it comes to handling historical events and the like. But this was just kind of, you know, these are things that aren't a good for a professional look, so to speak. This entry, it links to Nitro Plus's statement on it, so you can go read that for yourself if you can read Japanese, because of course this is in Japanese. But yeah, not much else to say, just that some people had some opinions that were a bit unsavory, to say the least. And next one is the Katsugeki Yagen horse controversy. Jesus. I remember this one. Episode director Takuro Takahashi made a vulgar comment online regarding the scene of Yagen in the stables getting licked by the horse. It turns out he was drunk as he did so, and Ufotable issued a statement of apology for his actions. I kept it vague. When people found out they started boycotting merch, it was so bad. Really? Wow. Wow. Like, I could not blame them, honestly, because like to think that someone that high up in the chain for developing the game was making such stuff, like, ugh, not great. So, the thing about Katsugeki Yagen horse controversy, I kept it vague here, but basically, the director drunkenly said that he found it funny because, okay, I'll show you the picture. I'll show you the scene. So here, Yagen gets licked by a horse, and for some reason they thought it would be, in his drunkenness, make a comment about, haha, isn't it funny because like if you squint, the horse kind of looks like a man's genitalia. So it's like, it's such a, why would you say that? Especially since Yagen gets drooled on, so it's like wet, nasty. Like there's a version of this where people even like censored the horse to like prove his point, which is like, ugh. No, that was just a poor tasting joke. The backlash for this was quite bad as well. I know for a fact that this is the reason why this scene doesn't get any fan art, even though it's actually quite funny. The people were so upset about that comment, they decided like, nope, we're just gonna pretend this part doesn't exist. It's been ruined now. We are gonna erase this from memory. And now I brought it to light. So now you're all cursed with this information. Jesus. I remember seeing an E-rated fic about a Yagen thing on AO3. Oh! Oh! Oh no, yeah. I think the one I have linked on the Iceberg is actually an English article. So you guys, again, I encourage you click on the links in this Iceberg. I took the time to source these so that you can really put in more reading to this, because my rambling is not great. I just keep going on tangents. So it's for your own jumpstart in researching these topics. Next is the Admiral is in the base. Even this one was so obscure. I actually got this wrong the first time that Hime brought this up. So Mikazuki actually has a line that has long since been removed, referencing Kantai collection. Here, there we go. Admiral is in the base. As expected, that's not quite right, is it? So yeah, they were like giving a little nod to Kantai collection with this one, which, if you're uninformed, is also hosted in DMM. So something to be thought about that. And as the caption on the left says, it was removed by April 2015, which means I actually did not even get to experience this despite playing starting at the 17th, because I did not have Mikazuki yet. I think I had to wait until they gave him out for free on Pocket. But yeah. Additionally to this is that I actually thought that this was what Hime was referring to, is that the prototype images for Touken Ranbu bore so much similarity to Kankole's UI. So here's like a beta version of it. And here are more of the beta images next to Kantai Collection's screenshots. So, like, you know, those comments really weren't unfounded, because this was a thing. I also have, there's more screenshots, by the way. There's Hime provided a link to an article, so I've linked that here as well. But these are just the ones I wanted to show so far. It's just, wow. Touken Ranbu has just come such a long way from what it used to be. Next is Mikazuki, Kogitsune Maru, and Kashu Nendoroid backgrounds. So, those three were the first characters from the franchise to get Nendoroids. And as a promotional thing, the Nendoroids, the first edition ones, came with a code that you were able to enter in a section on the browser, which has long since been discontinued, because now in-game gifts from devs don't need to be accessed with codes. They just send it straight to your inbox. But yeah, back then you had to like type in a code and you would get a special background that featured the characters, Nendoroids, in the background, like here. And the shoji on this one bears their crests. It's super cute. Like they're also quite oversized for like a Nendoroid. Like these would be like, I don't know, a foot tall IRL, I guess. And the fun thing about these is that if you click on them, they talk. They have special lines recorded as Nendoroids, so it's as if the Nendoroids themselves are Tsukumogami as well. So it's kind of a shame that the only people that would have these are the people that were playing at the time, ordered these Nendoroids or got the codes from a friend, and managed to use it before the codes expired. Because even if you were to, let's say, pick up a first edition Nendoroid for these characters and got the code, you can't use them anymore. Not only are they expired, the way to input the code simply doesn't exist anymore. So they're kind of like ultra veterans discount card for Touken Ranbu. And honestly, I kind of wish, like, I understand why they couldn't, but it would have been so nice if every Nendoroid came with these. Like, could you imagine that much sword Nendoroids running around the Citadel? That would be wonderful. And finally, my favorite thing ever, are live action Touken Ranbu Pocket commercials. You know how I said earlier earlier in an upper layer how there were swords that were not in the game but were in other adaptations. I had to separate this because you may know about the ones from the musical, the stage play, and the movie, but most people have forgotten about these two. So, when Touken Ranbu Pocket was first launched, they shot special live-action commercials featuring two unique swords that were only ever shown in these commercials. You never see them again. I am just stunned at that decision to have exclusive swords for commercials that lasted like 30 seconds, which, by the way, links to these in the description. Again, don't re-upload them because these are probably gonna get taken down. But yeah, this is Onigiri, like his name is literally Onigiri. He's described to be a cool and awesome old man sword, and his CM features like a short fight scene. It's quite something to watch. It's unlocking a core memory. Yeah, I still dream that we get Onigiri one day. And this one is Nekome, and he freedom. So Nekome CM is a bit more lighthearted, so it's like he's, if I remember correctly, it's about him picking up a cat and like saying he won't abandon them like his master did. It's like, why would you put angst in a CM? And I remember like his CM had him like get injured, and like the end of it was him lying on a futon afterwards, like, and he still had like the pocket phone next to him. Like, why this storyline in 30 seconds, Touken Ranbu? Like, how am I supposed to deal with getting attached to these swords I know I'll never see again? And yeah, I never did see them again. I think these two had fan art made of them at some point, but they're very, very, very difficult to find. If I was able to find them, I would have included them, but I know I saw them, and they were quite endeared to the community for a little while. And I wanted to include this one here because they were the OGs. Before anyone else, any of the special guys in the upper layer, they were here first. Onigiri and Nekome walked, so redacted, and Omokage could run. Please, I need them so badly in my life. Please, free them. You got them to advertise the Pocket game, and they're not in the game. How cruel are you, Touken Ranbu? Yeah, I want them to. So that's a new mission. I have infected you all with the CM brainworms. Again, links to their commercials in the description. I'm about to end the stream, so please wait here. Like, let me just address, like, once again, this is the end of the Touken Ranbu Iceberg. This had 56 entries, and a bunch of these were you guys' suggestions. It was so much fun putting this together, and again, thank you, Hime, for your help, and even starting the original Iceberg that inspired me to like do this in the first place. Like, this is kind of like a little love letter to Touken Ranbu for me, because 8 years, I've spent 8 years in this hell now, and it's got so much tidbits that not everyone knows, and I think it would be a lot, like, me as someone who knows most of them, it makes the experience so much more colorful. So I decided to do this, to like share it with everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on this stream. It makes me so happy to have you guys here talking with me and discussing. I'm going to post the image and link to this on Twitter after I end the stream. So there's that for sharing. Thank you guys. Again, like, you guys should take credit for this too, because a lot of these were like, it's a good showcase of what things people remember about their favorite things. Because your suggestions, I knew most of them, but they slipped my mind. If I wasn't able to ask it from you guys, I would have completely forgotten to add them here. Which, if there's something here that you didn't see and thought I should have included, I am still taking suggestions. I'll be more than happy to update this for everyone. So like, just DM me, leave them in the comments, scream at me in the replies on Twitter, I don't know. And we'll expand on this as we go. And I mentioned this in the description, but for things that are specific to adaptations, such as deep lore about the musical, the animes, and the stage plays, I chose not to include them here because they're, like I said, not everyone consumes those adaptations of Touken Ranbu. I wanted to keep it more accessible to everyone who's just like, you know, a general fan. And if anyone wants to make icebergs specializing in those, I highly encourage it. Like, please go ahead. I'm not gonna capitalize on this idea, like hoard it to myself. I want to see what you guys know about the more specific corners of the swamp and share it. Like, I probably won't discuss it because I'm not confident enough in those info. But if anyone were to discuss it themselves, let me know and I will promote the hell out of it, because my favorite thing about the swamp is how we're all just very nice about sharing information with everyone. It's just a very nice tight-knit community, even if there's not a whole lot of us. So again, thank you for your kind comments, for sticking with me. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for staying with me. If you guys have suggestions for the iceberg, I am open to them. If there's something you want me to discuss, I am also open to that. I would love to hang out with you guys some more. Though, like I mentioned, like, because deciding to do the iceberg was done in a poll, and the other option was discussing what the hell Touken Ranbu even is. That one didn't win out, but it was like it was a close margin. I will be doing that topic on my Saniv anniversary. So that's April 15th. So that's something to look forward to sometime. Yeah. I'm hyping it up even though I haven't even started on the script. But anyway, I've kept you guys here long enough. Thank you so much. Wait for the tweet that'll come out soon for sharing this. Have a good evening, day, afternoon. Happy anniversary, Touken Ranbu. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.